Chapter 2201 Print 10,000 copies first. Mag brewed a pot of black tea and sat next to the floor-to-ceiling window, basking in the warm sun. He laid on the chair in relaxation and cuddled Ugly Duckling, who was left behind in the house. Amy, who had a 1-month holiday, finally started school again. She started school about 1 week earlier than the Chaos School's students. Annie was drawing upstairs. The little one decided to fine-tune Miss Black Cat and show it to Maestro Vicky personally tomorrow, hoping to get her approval. Irina had gone to the textile factory and there were many things at the Night Elves that still needed her attention. The restaurant was closed for a long time. The chef job not only didn't make Mag tired, instead, he felt even more motivated after he heard the customers' praises. What other jobs in this world could earn you money and reputation at the same time? It wasn't easy to find such a job. After drinking a pot of tea alone, Mag put a red and blue jacket on Ugly Duckling before putting it in the bicycle's basket. He then took one of the picture books that Annie drew from the shelf and went out. Mag rode to the textile factory at the north of the city. The elves at the entrance were very polite to Mag, who was the investor of the factory. They let him in without any issues. Mag didn't bother Irina and went straight to the empty workshop that kept the printing machine from Ultraman's hometown. The gigantic machine was placed in the center of the workshop. The dusty surfaces were already wiped down and the unknown silver metal had a cold gleam, showing its amazing technological feel. This thing was nuclear-powered. Its previous activation even attracted Xi's attention. However, now that Mag and Xi were familiar with each other, at least superficially, using this machine shouldn't be a big problem. To the elder things who could manufacture advanced battleships, a nuclear-powered printing machine shouldn't be something worth noticing. If they asked about it, he could say he had dug it out from the ground. Moreover, even if the elder things wanted to take it away to study it, as long as Mag could ask for a printing machine that was equally effective from them, he would have no objections at all. After all, Mag got this printing machine from the system for free. He wouldn't feel the pinch at all. Mag placed Annie's picture book in the scanning area. This was Annie's first complete work, The Tale of the Little Mermaid. The machine was very sophisticated, and its operation was very foolproof. Its setting was simple. Scan the whole book, print it out and then set the numbers of books to be printed. Mag pondered about it briefly. Perhaps, he should just print 10,000 copies first? A comic artist couldn't say he or she was a bestseller comic artist without selling at least 10,000 copies, right? However, looking at the rumbling machine and stacks of picture books that were sent out of the conveyor belt, Mag felt that he was being a little rash. He hadn't even found a sales channel to sell the picture books and yet he printed 10,000 copies just like that. At most, we'll sell them at the restaurant's entrance for 1,000 copper coins a copy. This is a 10 million business. Mag rubbed his chin as he pondered out loud. He picked up a printed picture book. The print quality was exceedingly high, as though it was hand-drawn. There was no sign of printing. The color was vibrant and the drawing style was cute. It was an excellently colored picture book. Picture books of such quality could sell for at least 10,000 copper coins in Rodu. 10,000 copper coins was already considered cheap because colored picture books could only be hand-drawn by artists before the printing technology advanced, and an artist who could draw such a good quality picture book needed at least a month or even longer to complete it. Of course, Mag was cheating by using a printing machine. However, 1,000 copper coins could allow some rich young people to buy it as an inspiring book or a bedtime story book, or a choice for some straight men who didn't know what to buy as a gift. It was considered very reasonable. I heard from them that you came. Irina came in and saw the picture books that were sent out by the conveyor belt continuously. Slightly taken aback, she said, so that's what this machine is meant for. Yes. This is the printing machine. Mag passed the picture book to Irina with a laugh. Irina flipped through the picture book and looked increasingly surprised. Finally, she put down the picture book and looked at the machine. She said with starlight in her eyes, "This is a machine that could print money." Yes, as his family member, she immediately realized the value of this machine. "Get a few people to pack them up in wooden boxes. We will pack 1,000 copies in a box and send one box to Mamie restaurant every day, starting from today," Mag replied with a smile. "How much do you intend to sell a copy for?" Irina asked. 1,000 copper coins a copy. It's a long-term business, so I can't make it into a luxury item. Annie is a Speedy Gonzales anyways. Mag smilingly said, "Let's earn 10 million to test the water first." Irina nodded in agreement. After pondering, she continued, "But many children can't afford the 1,000 copper coins price tag." After a brief consideration, Mag said, "Why don't we print a batch of black and white ones and then sell them through the bookshop channels at 100 copper coins per book?" "That's great." Irina's eyes lit up. "Many night elves are free now. I can get some elves who are great at drawing and carving to do carving and printing work. You don't have to bother about the carving. This is a super printer. It could just print the black and white version. The elves will just have to finish the printing and binding work." Mag shook his head smilingly. He also began to have a plan to make a simple black and white printer. With this super printer, he could finish the carving and printing work on it. He could even print out all the spare parts for many simple machines. This was the power of technology. Mag had a 3D printer too, but that thing's uses were very limited. It couldn't compare to this printer at all, and he couldn't do much with it. "All right." Irina nodded. Although she couldn't quite understand what Mag was talking about, she simply felt she could trust him. The job of printing 10,000 picture books was soon finished. The elves made the wooden boxes and packed the books before sending them to Mamie restaurant. Mag set the printer and printed the 3D version parts of the black and white printer. It was highly accurate and could be used simply by brushing ink over it once it was set up. Mag wrote the user instructions in a small manual. As for the job of choosing the paper and printing, he left it to Ashley to coordinate. The job of printing the black and white picture books could at least provide 500 job positions for the night elves. Mag's initial requirement was to print 1,000 books a day. This was just the black and white print, its price wouldn't be too expensive. Hence, the profit could only be increased by the volume. As for the market, Mag wasn't worried at all. The Norland continent was going to welcome 100 years of peace. Mag's target was to sell Annie's picture books to the whole world. At Mamie restaurant's entrance, Mag called out to the two elves who delivered the books, "Just put them here first. You two ladies just wait here for a section." Chapter 2202 Annie the Beautiful Genius Comic Artist. "That's okay. From today onwards, you two will be responsible for selling the picture books. It will be 1,000 copies a day until they are all sold. I will provide 3 meals for you and pay you a daily salary of 1,000 copper coins. How is it?" Mag smilingly asked. The slightly taller elf's eyes lit up and she asked, "Are we eating at Mamie restaurant?" "Of course, you'll be eating with us." Mag nodded with a smile. The two elves looked at each other and simultaneously said, "We are willing." They had always heard Big Sister Ferris say that Mamie restaurant was the best restaurant in the world and the boss made really delicious food. However, because of the expensive price, they had never tried it before. The food that Big Sister Ferris made was very delicious, but she said her culinary skills were not even 0.0001% of Mamie restaurant's boss. It would be fantastic if they could get to eat at Mamie restaurant for free. Mag introduced himself. "I am Mag, the boss and head chef of Mamie restaurant." "We know you, Mr. Mag." The taller elf smilingly said, "I'm Molly, this is my younger sister, Eve." "Molly and Eve, it's nice to meet you." Mag nodded. He took out the sign that he printed at the textile factory earlier, which was as tall as a man, and carried a table over. He took a few dozen picture books from the wooden box and displayed them on the table. There are 1,000 books here and the sign has already listed the price. Your job is to hand the books to the customers and receive the 1,000 copper coins. Each customer can only purchase 2 books. Mag introduced the way of selling the books to the two of them. Mr. Mag, we have 10,000 picture books here, so why are we limiting its sale? Isn't it better if there are people who are willing to buy more of it? Eve asked with doubts. Molly looked doubtful as well. Because the market value of this book will far exceed 1,000 copper coins once it is sold. If this picture book is brought to Rodu, it could be sold for 10,000 copper coins or even higher before the news of bulk sales is spread. Mag explained with a smile, I want to let more people admire this picture book and not let some people hog them, just so they can make money. 10,000 copper coins. Molly and Eve opened their mouths. They couldn't imagine that this picture book's price would increase by 10 times once it went to another place. Use this box to collect the money. Don't worry. Mamie Restaurant's customers are all very refined, you can definitely handle them. Mag carried a big box over and put it next to their feet before giving them 2 bar stools. Thank you, boss, the 2 maidens said with a smile. You two get used to the working environment first, I'll call you guys in for lunch shortly. Mag told them before going back into the restaurant. He went upstairs to change into his chef's suit and began to prepare for the lunch service. Ferris came in and asked Mag, who was tying on his apron, Boss, are Molly and Eve here to sell the picture books? Yes. We are short of manpower. They sent the books over and I asked them to help since they look rather smart. Mag nodded. Whoa, look at the sign by the door. Annie really makes beautiful drawings. Yabimiya came in and smilingly said, I want to go upstairs and bring our great artist down to come look at her big drawing. Having a book signing seems like a great idea. Mag nodded. This was what a bestseller comic artist had to go through once she became popular. Drawing was a lonesome task. To be able to receive the reader's positive feedback would be very gratifying. I'll go upstairs then. Yabimiya ran upstairs and pulled Annie downstairs by her hand. She brought Annie, who was still rather dazed, to the door. Annie stood at the restaurant's door and looked at the large sign, which was of her in a long dress, holding a paintbrush, with wide eyes. She stood there with her mouth agape and a shocked expression. Next to her drawing, were 2 lines of big words, Annie the Genius comic artist's first colored work, The Tale of the Little Mermaid. Limited edition. For sale right now. 1,000 copper coins per copy. Are you the genius comic artist, Annie? Your picture book is so beautiful. Eve praised Annie from the bottom of her heart. Annie's throat moved. After recovering from her shock, she felt a sense of embarrassment. However, after hearing Eve's words, she still expressed her gratitude with sign language politely. Mia helped to explain smilingly, Annie has some problem with her throat, so she's using sign language to communicate for the moment. Molly and Eve nodded in realization. Annie nodded to the 2 of them before going into the restaurant with a blush. Mag said to Annie, who had a blush, do you like it? It's the sale of your first work. Annie looked at Mag with shyness and gratitude. She nodded to express her gratitude. Listening to people's praises and seeing stacks of her books placed on the table that were about to be sold. It felt rather amazing. It was as if she had just found the reason why she was doing this, to share something good with more people. Wasn't it the initial reason why she picked up the paintbrush? How wonderful it was to let more people hear Father's stories and feel the warmth and love in them. I like it very much. Annie signed. It's great that you like it. We'll be considered to be bestseller comic artists after we sell these 10,000 picture books, Mag said with a smile, feeling very proud of Annie. As for the book signing, Annie rejected it. The little maiden was still very shy. However, Mag began to think otherwise. Annie was just a newcomer, people might not want her to sign the picture books, so he gave up. It was getting close to noon, so the customers began to line up at the restaurant. The news of Mamie Restaurant's reopening had already spread around. Those chow hounds, who had missed breakfast, rushed over because they were afraid to miss out on lunch too. Milo and Garland were among them. The two of them, who were trapped in Chaos City due to the sudden war, looked much more haggard. Garland had shaved off his beard at the hotel himself. The two of them shed happy tears in the hotel when they heard they had won the war. They even prepared to go home in the middle of the night. However, they didn't want to make a wasted trip. After all, the new peace accord was already signed and the Norland continent was going to welcome a long period of peace. They had already set the next target for their magazine, selling it throughout the Norland continent. Hence, the two of them made a trip to Mamie Restaurant to see if Boss Mag was around. The signboard at the door attracted their gazes. At first, they thought it was about Boss Mag's new dishes, but after taking a closer look, it was actually promoting a comic book. Annie the Genius comic artist? I've never heard of her before. Milo scratched his head. Yes. A newcomer. Garland was also shaking his head. You guys don't know about her, do you? Miss Annie is Boss Mag's daughter. A regular at the restaurant informed them smilingly. Besides, each picture book actually cost as much as 1,000 copper coins. Although Mamie Restaurant's food was never cheap, its quality was high and it was acknowledged by the customers. However, picture books were usually sold at a few tens of copper coins each in the market. Selling it at a sky-high price of thousands of copper coins per book just because it was drawn by Boss Mag's daughter and was sold at the restaurant's door, was like treating the customers like fools. If it's 1,000 copper coins, other than erotic books with limited copies sold in Rodu, it would be difficult to sell books at this price even if they were hand-drawn, unless they are colored, Milo said as he stroked his chin. Why do you know the market so well? Garland sized him up. I just heard about it. I don't know it well. Milo said, in an attempt to hide the fact that he had collected several erotic books. The market rate at Chaos City should be less, but the market for picture books usually focuses on the younger population and therefore they cost less. Harrison, who was standing diagonally behind them, interjected. There would occasionally be books from Rodil with very good quality. I'm so envious of their resources. To each his own. Milo turned back to look at him with a smile of admiration. Miss, is this picture book really being sold at 1,000 copper coins per copy? Garland asked. Their motive for coming today was to see Mag and go through another round of interviews, as well as to get the draft for his next column. The Perfect Food magazine relied on Mag's column to break its record sales during such tumultuous times, to become the best-selling magazine since it was established. On top of that, the sales of this week's Perfect Food had also successfully clinched the top spot in the magazine industry. They had been in Chaos City for a month, but the doves carrying letters from Rodu did not seem to have stopped coming. Their boss had already sent an order down to satisfy any condition Mr. Mag raised to clinch the agreement to get his exclusive for Perfect Food. This was a man who could change the fate of gourmet magazines on his own, and that showed just how influential he was. It was difficult to imagine that a chef in Chaos City would one day be able to influence the magazine audience in every part of the Norland continent. Therefore, Garland had decided to understand this talented comic artist, who was Mr. Mag's daughter. He had seen how Mag pampered the little boss and knew that he was a spring dad. For such people, the simplest way was to find common ground on what he likes, and that would be through his daughter. The 1,000 copper coins might be expensive, but it was worth it as long as it could make Mr. Mag like him more. Perhaps only one copy of these comics could be sold today and he would be the one who bought the only copy. That was the difference. Yes, sir. This picture book is sold at 1,000 copper coins per copy and each person is only limited to 2 copies, Molly said with a smile. Mr. Mag had said that if these picture books were to be sold in Rodu, they could fetch up to tens of thousands of copper coins per copy. This was a massive sale, selling them at 1,000 copper coins a copy today. Limited. Garland was stunned. The customers queuing at the back were also shocked. Mamie restaurant would always have a tradition of limiting the number of dishes each customer could order so that more customers could try them and to prevent people from buying the food in bulk and reselling them. To think that this picture book was sold at a high price of 1,000 copper coins and was limited to only 2 copies per customer? Garland thought for a while and regained his composure and asked amiably, "Can I take a look?" Mr. Mag was a very smart person. Garland could tell that from his brief contact with him. Such a person would not be so short-sighted to make use of the trust of his customers to upsell them something. If he dared to mark something at 1,000 copper coins and limited the number of copies sold to each person, the only possibility was that this picture book was worth it. The other customers also turned to look at the 2 elf maidens. One would just need a look to know if this picture book was worth 1,000 copper coins. Eve passed a thin picture book to Garland and reminded him, "This is the trial read version. Please do not spoil it for others after reading it." Garland received the thin picture book. There was a beautiful mermaid on its cover. "It's actually colored." Garland's eyes lit up in shock. The little mermaid was very lifelike and the drawing style was very mature. It did not look like a novice's work at all. It could even surpass most of the illustrators in the market. The important part was that the colors were very vibrant, yet they were all drawn in the book stroke by stroke. Garland could not wait to flip to the next page. The content was all colored. Could this be a full-colored picture book? Garland's heart skipped a beat. This was very rare in the picture book market. As the chief editor of a gourmet magazine, he would often meet some editors doing picture books, so he knew the market pretty well. A picture book of this quality could fetch at least 30,000 copper coins because such a picture book would take an excellent illustrator months to draw, so naturally, it would not be cheap. Garland flipped through the 10-odd pages of the trial read version briefly. The illustrator's standard could be seen in the style, storyboard, and plot. Everything was very well done. If this was really drawn by Mr. Mag's 14-year-old daughter, she was indeed a talented comic artist. Is the content and quality of the picture book the same as the trial read version? Garland asked Eve. Yes. Eve nodded with certainty. Give me 2 copies, then, Garland said without hesitation. What's going on? Milo exclaimed. Is it a good book? Buying 2 copies immediately after looking at the trial read version. Is he one of those sorts of people? The customers all looked at Garland in shock. 1,000 copper coins for a picture book was not cheap at all. Take a look for yourself. Garland passed the trial read version to Milo. It's so cute. Milo's eyes lit up upon seeing the little mermaid on the cover. As a geek, he had read several books and could tell the illustrator's standard with one look. This was already better than 99% of the illustrators in the market and was the cream of the crop in terms of capturing characters' expressions. This was talent. It could not be learned. Such people are, usually called drawing freaks. There was still room for improvement in terms of technique, but such a level of completion was sufficient as a form of livelihood. Why is it colored? Milo quickly raised the same query as Garland. A full-colored picture book with such a high level of completeness and such great drawing style, with a novel plot, was worth way more than 1,000 copper coins. He had a few hand-drawn picture books from some illustrators in his collection ranging from 10,000 to 50,000 copper coins. If this picture book appeared in Rodou, it would not be strange for it to fetch a price of 50,000 copper coins if a rich young lady liked it. I want 2 copies as well, Milo said without hesitation as well. It's a steal if you manage to buy it. When he returns to Rodou, he would keep one and resell the other one so that he could make a fortune with it. After 2 people read the trial read version, they'd decided to buy 2 copies each. This made the customers in the queue extremely curious. When they saw the 2 of them take their money out to buy 2 copies of the picture book, the crowd was increasingly curious about what that picture book was. Let me take a look too. Harrison was also a picture book lover. His collection could be considered the largest in Chaos City. He took the trial read version from Milo and was very quickly stunned by the cover as well. There were almost no good illustrators in Chaos City and it was extremely difficult to get his hands on a colored book from Rodu. The ones he had at hand were mediocre, but it was enough for him to boast around in his circle. Right now, this picture book's quality surpassed all that he had with him. The detailed drawing and cute little mermaid were all extremely lovable. Georgina's birthday was coming up and Harrison had been thinking of what to buy her as a present. Now that he had seen this picture book, he had finally found it. "I want to as well," Harrison said without hesitation and started taking his money out. Harrison was a regular of Mamie restaurant and many knew him. "What exactly is this picture book?" None of them said anything after taking a look and just bought it straight away. "Is it really a treasure? I like picture books, let me take a look." The customers were all in a fervent discussion and the trial read version started being passed around in the crowd. "Wow, it's fully colored. I can't believe Annie is so remarkable. Mama, this little mermaid is very pretty. I want it. Daddy, I want the little mermaid too. I'm gonna cry if you don't buy it for me. You're already 32, can't you sound your age? A man is still a boy till he dies. I want one. I want one too." The customers who saw the trial read version were all convinced by the picture book's quality. Those who knew their stuff could tell this picture book's value, and parents were also happy to buy a good reading product for their children. After all, the story was interesting and the illustrations were cute. Of course, it was mainly because Mamie restaurant's regulars were mostly wealthy people. 1,000 copper coins might sound expensive, but it was nothing compared to a meal in Mamie restaurant. Molly and Eve were all busy counting the money and passing the picture books to the passionate customers. After all, it was their first time selling them and they had no experience. On top of that, they had not seen so much money before, so both of them were overwhelmed. "Don't rush. Everyone please queue up and come one at a time," Yabimiya said. She received the money from the customers with a smile. After glancing at the money, she threw it into the money box and passed a picture book to the customer. Yabimiya's appearance brought back order to the originally chaotic scene. The customers queued up to buy the picture book in an orderly fashion. "This big sister is impressive." Molly and Eve wiped their perspiration away and smiled at the customers as they looked at Yabimiya, who completed the transactions, with admiration. Before the restaurant even opened, 1/3 of the 1,000 picture books were already sold. The customers in the queue had at least one picture book in their hands. There were many who started reading it and were all gasping in awe. "All right. Pause for a while, it's time for us to eat." Yabimiya passed the last picture book to the customer who came over, and placed a sign indicating that sales had paused on the table. She locked the money box and brought the two young maidens into the restaurant. Don't we need a person to keep watch?" Eve asked softly. "Boss said that it is lunchtime and eating is the most important thing," Mia said with a smile, "otherwise, not just you, but those who are waiting for you to eat, would also have to suffer." Molly and Eve nodded thoughtfully. When they entered, they saw Irina sitting at the table. "Your Highness!" The two greeted hurriedly in shock. Irina nodded. "Wash your hands and get ready for lunch." The two were initially rather nervous, but after hearing Irina's words, they were shocked. "Are they eating with the princess? Let's go, I'll bring you to wash your hands." Yabimiya led the two of them to the kitchen with a smile. "The picture books are selling quite well. Well done. Eat more. You still have work to do later." Mag praised the two sisters with a smile. He saw the scene outside just now. It was within his expectations, but he was still a little proud. Molly and Eve stole a glance at Irina. They did not dare to pick up their chopsticks first. "Let's eat." Irina nodded at them. The two finally picked up their chopsticks and focused on the sumptuous lunch before them. This lunch was too filling. There were delicacies of every kind that they had never seen before, and the taste was also beyond what they could imagine. The tofu pudding that melted in their mouth, the spicy and fragrant steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers, the delicious beggar's chicken, soft and sweet red braised pork. This meal was like a dream to Molly and Eve. They could not believe that such delicacies could actually exist in this world. If they could, they were willing to work for Mamie Restaurant as long as they could get a free meal. Salaries and other things did not matter at all. Can money buy such delicious food? It can. But definitely not with 1,000 copper coins. After lunch, everyone took a short break before Mag opened for business. "Mr. Mag, you have 2 outstanding daughters," Garland told Mag sincerely upon stepping into the restaurant as its first customer. After that, he took a step forward and said softly, "I have something very important I wish to discuss with you during your afternoon break." "Sure." Mag nodded with a smile. After the continuous hard work from perfect food, Mag's fans had exceeded 30,000 in number, and that was a very successful first partnership. As the only successor of Old Sim, Hannah had already begun to shine in the rum-making world. However, no one expected her to come to Chaos City and even set up a new brewery here. "Seems like we came just at the right time. We get to drink the high-quality rum again." Old Carl the storyteller chuckled. He had been asking Mag about when the rum would come back again. He didn't expect the rum to return after Mamie Restaurant's 1-month break. Even though it wasn't Old Sim's brew, Master Hannah's brewing techniques were still very trustworthy. Ever since Old Master Sim passed away, Hannah was the only master who could brew rum in this world. Although she was still young, apparently all the high-quality rum from the Fok tribe in the past few years had come from Hannah. Her ability was without any doubts. She used Old Sim's aged rum as the base to brew the new rum. Of course, it was worth looking forward to. And, the price tag of 1,000 copper coins per bottle was much cheaper than the previous 1,000 copper coins per glass. They could even bring it back home if they couldn't finish it. It was much more cost-effective. Many rum lovers ordered a bottle as soon as they sat down. A liquor that was sold in Mamie Restaurant simply couldn't go wrong. Mag looked at the rum in the wine cabinet with a smile on his face. He drank it at last night's gathering and its quality was excellent. Even though it was slightly less tasty than an aged rum, it was still rather outstanding. Most importantly, Hannah's brewery could produce good quality rum in bulk right now. The daily output could reach 1,000 bottles and it was still increasing steadily. This was a 500 ml per bottle liquor and it could be sold outside of the restaurant. Given its quality that beat 99% of the other liquors on the market, there was still room for its 1,000 copper coins price to increase. The market overlord in his previous life was Mao Tai. Its trillion market cap was astonishing. Let's not be too ambitious with our rum. Let's just set a small target of earning 100 million first. In this world where no brewery could get famous beyond its local territory, Mag intended to make this rum into an excellent brand. Selling alcoholic beverages was a good business. It only needed a small capital to earn a huge profit. This market would start at Mamie Restaurant. Then, he would set up rum specialty shops. After the output increased, he would expand the sales channels and sell it all over the world. Old Carl quickly received the rum that he ordered. It was a black pottery bottle with a wooden cork. The rich rum's aroma greeted his nose after he removed the cork. It was the rum's unique aroma and it was irresistible. He poured it into the glass gingerly. The amber liquid swirled in the glass gently. It was clear and bright without any sediments, and it sparkled like starlight. Old Carl took a sip. The delicate and sweet texture had almost no difference to the rum that he drank previously. The rich aroma lingered in his mouth before rising upwards. The light sensation made him raise his eyebrows slightly. The faint fragrance of the wood made him feel even more excited. If he had to mention one difference, it would be the aftertaste. Old Sim's rum had been aged in the cellar for over 10 years. Its aftertaste was lingering and mesmerizing. Meanwhile, this rum's aftertaste was mildly sweet. It was equally unique but without the long aging process, there was simply something missing. Of course, this review was only made because old Carl had tasted old Sim's rum before. However, even though there was an excellent example to compare to, the quality of this bottle of rum still far exceeded his expectations. That teeny bit of difference could be ignored. It was beyond reasonable to be able to buy such a big bottle of high-quality rum with 1,000 copper coins. Old Carl could drink this bottle of liquor for 3 days. It was even enough to invite 2 to 3 friends over to have a drink. Boss Mag is really a kind and reasonable boss. Old Carl couldn't help but lament. These noodles are simply too scrumptious. Milo picked up the bowl and finished the soup in it. He then licked his lips satedly. He simply wanted to try Boss Mag's new product. It was just released today, so nobody had written about it before. As an outstanding food critic, he had a keen awareness. It was a wise choice to borrow some of Boss Mag's popularity, as he was so famous in the gourmet magazine circle right now. Wasn't it nice to earn more royalties? The boss had already said, his royalty would triple as long as he wrote something related to Mamie Restaurant. Yes. Yes, he was that generous. To the boss who liked to restrict the writer's freedom to create, Milo only wanted to say, the more the merrier. Compared to the usual shops which only gave a few pieces of sliced meat, these shaved noodles had red braised beef all over them. The cube-sized red braised beef were supple and had some tendons in them. It made them soft, yet chewy, giving it an exquisite eating experience. The noodles were even more special. The willow-shaped noodles were thick in the center and thin at the ends. It was soft and smooth, yet still chewy. It was soaked with the bone broth and every bite was full of the wheat's aroma. One simply couldn't stop eating it. The soup was a bone broth and it had to have been brewed for a long time for it to have this white creamy color. The tasty meat aroma would make you finish all the soup after eating the noodles. After eating this bowl of noodles, Milo only felt 2 words float around his head, so good. Of course, Milo had already written a 5,000-word essay in his heart to review the shaved noodles professionally from all angles. He felt he could write a lot just on the process of shaving the noodles alone. It was a waste not to be able to witness that interesting process personally. Garland, who was across from him, picked up a piece of doe skin. He picked up a piece of roasted duck with skin and dipped it in the sweet bean sauce before adding in the sliced spring onions and cucumber. He rolled them up casually and popped it into his mouth. The duck meat that was freshly sliced was still piping hot. The skin was crispy and the lean meat with a tinge of fat was tender and juicy. Wrapped in the thin doe skin, the crispy skin and the tender duck meat melted away simultaneously when they were bitten down on in the mouth. The subtle aroma spread in the oral cavity instantly and the more he chewed the more aromatic it got. The taste buds on the tip of his tongue were all activated as they grasped onto that exquisite taste greedily. The suppression that accumulated for over 1 month in Chaos City seemed to have dissipated completely at that moment, only leaving a scrumptiousness that made him feel like crying. Garland swallowed the roasted duck as he wrapped the next piece of duck meat and asked, "Did you get any inspiration?" "I still need to gain some more inspiration." Milo picked up a piece of doe skin and extended his chopsticks to the roasted duck. They had never expected that the box of picture books that they delivered could turn into such a big box of money. "Molly, Eve, thank you for your hard work. Please go back for a rest and come back at 4 p.m. to sell the remaining 400 copies. Then, your work for today would be considered done." Mag sent the 2 of them off with a smile. He had earned 60,000. This business was not bad. Mag decided to give 50% of the profit from the money they earned from selling the picture books to Annie and let her decide how to use it herself. As for the remaining 50%, Mag decided to use it to invest in the entire comic industry chain. Since even a gourmet magazine could create a sale of 1 million copper coins, this meant the reader's market was actually very big. The fusion on the Norland continent was a trend and something that Mag would do his best to promote next. A work that was going to be a bestseller throughout the Norland continent would definitely appear in the future, and it could be a novel or a comic. Of course, printing issues had to be resolved if comics were to be popularized. With the existence of a super printing machine, it wasn't difficult to make a simple one. Mag already had some ideas. Garland and Milo, who were waiting at the door, approached him with a smile. "Mr. Mag, come on in." Mag invited them into the restaurant smilingly. After brewing a pot of tea, Mag sat opposite them and leaned on the back of the chair comfortably. "Boss Mag, you have really made us wait by not opening for 1 month," Garland said with a mild aggrievement. They had been waiting for Mamie Restaurant to open for the past month to no avail. They didn't even work as hard as when they were pursuing maidens. "I had to go out to find inspiration. There's simply no other way," Mag replied smilingly without any guilt. After all, he had gone away to do proper work. They had to thank those warriors who sacrificed their lives at the front line for them, because that was the only way they were able to drink afternoon tea so leisurely now. "I missed the soup dumplings in the morning, but this shaved noodles is indeed exceptionally delicious, and its manufacturing process is quite amazing too. Your recent trip for inspiration has indeed created a perfect noodle dish," Milo said with an impressed look. He didn't hide his admiration for Mag in his words and expression. "There's 2 more dishes coming," Mag corrected. Milo was slightly taken aback before he smiled and said, "Seems like I have to wake up early tomorrow." Actually, Mag still had Sichuan spicy wontons in red oil and hot noodles with sesame paste to release, but he couldn't spoil his customers too soon, so he would release them 2 days later. After all, he would be taking a break tomorrow. To prevent him from getting beaten up, it would be perfect to release 2 new products when he reopened for business 2 days later. Mr. Mag may not know about it, but the previous edition of our Perfect Food had sold over 1 million copies. It broke the magazine's sales record and was the edition that you've released your column in, Garland said to Mag. He was unable to conceal his excitement. As a veteran editor, he knew very well what an accomplishment such a sale was. "So, are you guys going to give me more money for that column piece?" Mag asked with a smile. Garland was at a loss for words. The core reason why this edition of Perfect Food was popular was because of Mag's interview and the eggplant with garlic sauce tutorial that he personally wrote. It could be said that Mag was the reason why this Perfect Food edition was hugely popular. There was a rule in the publishing world: no matter how hugely popular your article was, the royalty was agreed upon beforehand and wouldn't change at all. However, it meant that your next article could receive a higher price if the article you wrote previously became hugely popular. I'll need to discuss it with my boss. He still hasn't had the chance to discuss this matter with me yet," Garland replied cautiously. Although it was the rule, Mag was the most popular guy in the culinary world now and the rules could be changed. "It's fine. I'm just joking." Mag laughed. Their editorial agency could at most earn a profit of a few million with the 1 million copies sales. Even giving him an extra few hundreds of thousands, it still wasn't comparable to the sales of the picture books that the 2 maidens sold in one afternoon. However, the hundreds of thousands of fans that Perfect Food brought him was his biggest reward. Garland smiled along with Mag, but he didn't take Mag's words to be a joke. He was prepared to discuss the issue of royalty with his boss when he got back. Garland sincerely said to Mag, "We came today mainly to discuss the issue of future collaborations with Mr. Mag. We hope to sign an exclusive column with you. We'll pay you a handsome royalty fee if you publish an exclusive column with Perfect Food. Mag equals sales." This was already a consensus in the gourmet magazine circle. Within 1 short month, all the main magazines had released culinary review articles about Mamie Restaurant. Most of them were food reviews. This shameless behavior of jumping onto the bandwagon allowed all the magazines to achieve their record sales. However, compared to the 1 million sales of Perfect Food, which had Mag's exclusive eggplant with garlic sauce tutorial, they were still a level below them. Just because of that, Perfect Food knew the importance of getting rights to Mag's exclusive very well. As long as they could get Mag's exclusive column, Perfect Food would be undefeatable in the culinary magazine world. No one would ever stand in their way again. Perfect Food had already prepared a lot of negotiation chips for this, and with their previous collaboration as a base, Garland felt rather confident on this trip. "I'm sorry, but I won't sign an exclusive deal with any gourmet magazines." Mag shook his head to decline the offer. Garland and Milo were both taken aback and there was a hint of panic on their faces. "Mr. Mag, your talent is astonishing and we at Perfect Food treasure the chance to work with you. We hope to work together with you to create greater results. We'll build a series of magazines around you and let more people see the story behind the food," Garland sincerely said to Mag. "If you're concerned about the royalties, I can promise you on behalf of Perfect Food that our price will be the highest and the best in the industry." "You're mistaken. I'm not interested in money." Mag picked up the tea to have a sip before calmly saying, "I just want to let more people appreciate different food." "Then, the collaboration style that you are expecting is?" Garland's eyelids twitched frantically. What Mag said sounded ridiculous. "I did receive many invitations for collaboration recently. Their offers were not bad, but I won't sign an exclusive deal with any magazine press. Instead, I intend to choose 10 magazine presses to be my collaborative partners to release my gourmet column simultaneously." Mag continued on, "Perfect Food will be among one of these 10 magazine presses." This. Garland had a complex expression. He didn't know if he should feel happy or sad. He came with a mission this time. He would be torn apart by the boss if he failed to sign an exclusive deal with Mag. However, Mr. Mag wasn't someone who would be moved by a little royalty. Never mind if he cared about money or not, it was a fact that he was already very rich. Even if it could sell 1 million copies of every issue, there would be many repeat readers among them. And, what he needed were more fans to increase his faith value and proceed on his path to become a god. They said no gods could be made on the Norland continent. He didn't believe in that. Hence, he would need more media platforms to share about him and let many more people learn to cook from him through different channels. Mag's attitude was sincere and firm, and Garland wasn't someone who didn't know what was good for him, so he only set up part of the collaboration contract to make sure Perfect Food could at least have a place in this popularity contest. As for the rest, he would have to report to his boss and wait for further instructions. This was already beyond his jurisdiction. "Boss Mag, your spirit is indeed admirable," Milo got up and said to Mag sincerely with admiration on his face. He really admired this young chef who was full of creativity. At a time when all the other chefs were still guarding against one another for their so-called legacy, Mag was already thinking about how to let more ordinary people cook delicious food at home. His selfless and giving spirit, and love for food were touching. One could foresee that Mag would definitely have a profound influence on the Norland continent's culinary structure, or even elevate the level of the Norland continent's delicacies. To the culinary world, this was a godlike existence. Although Milo wrote articles for the Perfect Food, he was first and foremost a food lover. He admired Mag greatly for his decision. This was a man who was destined to change the world, and not just be a restaurant's chef. "Thank you." Mag nodded with a smile. After sending the two of them away, Mag received a few magazine presses person in charge. They were the few gourmet magazines he had chosen that had good potential and coverage. All of them expressed shock when they first heard about Mag's collaboration style, but they were soon glad that they could at least have the chance to work with him. One had to know that Perfect Food already had a head start, a base of 1 million sales, and would definitely offer very good conditions. They didn't expect it would fail to get the exclusive deal. Without an exclusive deal, it meant that it would be very difficult to recreate the miracle of Perfect Food's 1 million sales. However, with the culinary tutorial that Mag personally wrote, they would definitely get a share of this pie. They could expect their sales to increase. The signing of the contracts went very smoothly. Mag had conferred with 10 gourmet magazines that afternoon and agreed to hand in the next article 3 days later. A 5 or 6 years old little girl coyly said to the woman, who was arranging flowers, with the Little Mermaid picture book in her arms. "Mama, this picture book is so pretty, but it makes me hungry. I also want to eat the red braised pork that the little prince cooks." Karslan put down her scissors and smilingly said, "We have to look for Boss Mag if we want to eat red braised pork." "Is Boss Mag that little prince?" Alice's eyes lit up like stars. Carlson was slightly taken aback. She thought Boss Mag should be even more good-looking than that little prince when he was young. Moreover, he cooked very well and was still very charismatic now. She nodded with a smile. "If there is a prince in Chaos City, Boss Mag should be the Prince of Gourmet." "Prince of Gourmet? Can I marry him? I want to eat red braised pork every day. I love to eat meat," Alice asked with anticipation. "Then we have to wait till Alice is older. After all, there are many women who want to marry Boss Mag," Karslan answered smilingly. The little one had great taste. She chose the man who was the dream lover of many women. Alice counted on her little fingers and worriedly said, Then, will Boss Mag be snatched away by other women by the time I grow up?" Karslan smiled gently. "If that is the case, another prince who is more suitable for Alice, will appear and cook even tastier meat to marry you." "Really?" Alice gulped as though she had already decided what the tastier meat should be. "Alice, Father brought a bird that can talk home. Come and see it." A little boy spoke up outside. "I'm coming, big brother." Alice answered and ran out on her short legs. Karslan watched Alice disappear at the door indulgently before sitting down at the table and picking up the picture book that Alice was reading earlier. Her man had brought this picture book back at noon. He said he bought it at Mamie Restaurant and it was drawn by Boss Mag's daughter. Alice loved it as soon as he brought it home, and this was the first time that she had read it. "It's so well drawn." Karslan's eyes lit up when she saw the picture book's cover. The little mermaid sitting on the rock looked so well behaved and adorable. The sea was shimmering in the moonlight and stars decorated the sky. It looked so intricate and beautiful. She had bought many picture books for her children in the past few years, and her man would bring some back from Rodu too. Many of them were expensive colored picture books, but none of them could compare to this one. Karslan, who was attracted by the cover, flipped open the picture book. She was soon attracted by the beautiful pictures and interesting story. After a long time, Karslan closed the picture book with wet eyes. She could only come back from the sad emotions after a long time. "It's so touching. What a nice story." Karslan sniffled and lamented softly. She didn't expect a picture book that was drawn by a child to portray a love story. She couldn't be together with her love and eventually turned into bubbles. The tale of the Little Mermaid touched her. "Shall we go and eat at Mamie Restaurant tonight? I suddenly feel like eating red braised pork." Karslan's throat moved before she flipped open the picture book to read the part where the little prince made red braised pork for the Little Mermaid. Looking at the picture whereby the Little Mermaid bit into the red braised pork, her tummy began to grumble. However, the cooking process seems to be very detailed. Even the amount of ingredients to be used are properly written. It should be directed by Boss Mag himself, right? Perhaps, the little prince's inspiration was Boss Mag? I wonder if the chef in our family can make it. Karslan pondered as she walked to the kitchen with the picture book. The head chef looked excited after reading about the red braised pork's cooking instructions in the picture book, but he didn't dare to make promises. "Madam, this dish looks quite complicated. We'll need some time to experiment and test it out, but we should be able to make it." However, he was very certain that this would be a very scrumptious dish. Because it came from Mamie Restaurant and that chef who was gradually deified, Mag. He didn't expect him to share the recipe of red braised pork in this picture book so graciously. "Of course we're going to Mamie Restaurant for a good meal," Harrison answered with a smile before saying, "You look so pretty today." Georgina totally ignored his words, stood still and exclaimed with joy, "Boss Mag is back." Harrison nodded. "Yes. Mamie Restaurant reopened today. Didn't you go to your aunt's place for lunch today? That's why I want to bring you to dinner. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I wouldn't have gone to my aunt's for lunch if you had told me earlier. Of course, we're going to eat at Mamie restaurant. Georgina puffed out her cheeks angrily and flicked an aggrieved glance at Harrison, giving him an appease me or I'll explode expression. As an apology, this is your birthday gift. Harrison took out a picture book. What's this? Georgina took the picture book, which still had Harrison's warmth, from him, and her eyes lit up when she saw the adorable little mermaid on the cover. So cute! After staring at the cover for some time, Georgina looked up at Harrison. This must be very expensive, right? She didn't know much about picture books, but she knew that fully colored picture books were all hand-drawn by illustrators, which were expensive. Furthermore, the cover of this picture book was so beautiful. It must have been drawn by a great illustrator, so it must be even more expensive. Harrison smiled and said, "What's most important is that you like it." Looking at Harrison's warm smile, a blush rose up on Georgina's face and her heart couldn't help but race. She lowered her head and murmured, "Yes, I like it very much. Let's go and find a place to sit for a while first. It's still too early for dinner." Harrison held onto Georgina's hand and walked to a tea house. Boss Mag did not lie to me indeed. One simply can't go wrong to trust Boss Mag. Harrison said happily. Georgina indeed liked this picture book. Of course, the ladies had no resistance against such cute picture books. The birthday gift that he had been thinking hard about for 1 month was resolved on her birthday, so he felt extremely relieved. At 5 p.m., Mamie restaurant opened on time. Molly and Eve had already completed their work today. They had sold all 1,000 picture books. After getting their daily wage of 1,000 copper coins and having their dinner, they got off work and went home. Harold asked Mag when he walked in, "Boss Mag, is the Little Mermaid all sold out? It's my daughter's birthday tomorrow and I want to give it to her as a birthday gift. There'll be another 1,000 copies for sale at noon tomorrow. You can come and buy it then," Mag replied smilingly. "All right. Please keep 1 copy for me," Harold reminded him. He previously saw the customers lining up in front picking up the picture books, and was attracted by the exquisite picture book. He thought his daughter, whose birthday was tomorrow, would definitely like this picture book if he gave it to her as her gift. Mag nodded slightly. He remembered this middle-aged man's adorable daughter. Her name was Kathy and she used to come to have breakfast with Harold. So, this picture book is drawn by Boss Mag's daughter. She's so awesome. Georgina looked at the signboard at the door with shock, but she wasn't unhappy. "Yes. Annie is very awesome." Harrison nodded in agreement. Boss Mag must have saved the world in his previous life to be so lucky to have these 2 outstanding and adorable daughters. Mag, who was about to go into the kitchen, thought, "I didn't save the world in my previous life. Not only that, I fell into the sea and drowned because I was cursed by a group of chefs. However, he did save the world in this life." Mag saw many old friends during the dinner hour. SAHDR had brought his burning legion and they sat outside the door on the metal folding chairs that they brought themselves. They sat with their legs spread out wide and looked very fierce with their lava tattoos. However, a little one in a long white dress was fearlessly sitting on the leg of the biggest demon among the strapping men and softly asked, "Uncle Big Bald Head, did you use the gift that I gave you?" A gentle smile appeared on SAHDR's tough face as he nodded and said, "I did. It even saved my life. If it wasn't for the ice and fire lotuses that flew out from the ring that Amy gave him, which blew up the ancient corpses that were rushing at him, he would have died on the front line in the ravine that day. Amy saved his life." The members of the Burning Legion were also looking at Amy with a doting gaze. "How is it? Are they very pretty?" Amy continued to ask. "Yes. They were as brilliant as fireworks." "Did they beat the bad guys?" "They defeated a lot of bad guys and saved the world." SAHDR nodded with a smile. Oh yeah. Amy jumped off SAHDR's leg happily and ran into the restaurant. Father. Uncle Big Bald Head said I saved the world. Little boss is so cute, Mon said bashfully. From now on, little boss will be the Burning Legion's favorite. I will kill whoever dares to bully her, SAHDR said seriously. The Burning Legion nodded gravely. They weren't joking. Amy walked one round in the restaurant before stopping at a table near the wall and exclaimed in surprise at the two orcs sitting there, Big Orc. You're finally here again. Yes. I came to eat rainbow fried rice and to visit little Amy, Haga said bashfully. Habang looked up from the delicacies and said with amazement, we've only been away for a short time and there are already so many new goodies. Boss Mag is really formidable. The Orc brothers, Haga and Habang, hadn't come to Chaos City for a long time. After returning to their tribe from the battlefront, they took the flying steed to Chaos City to purchase some things for their tribe. Of course, they would come to Mamie restaurant first. They had been longing for Boss Mag's good food. After risking their lives at the front line, they naturally wanted to reward themselves with good food after they returned. The restaurant still looked the same, but the menu had changed drastically. The many different kinds of delicacies had overwhelmed them. Habang searched on himself before taking out a beast-tooth dagger and giving it to Amy with a smile. Are you giving it to me? Amy accepted the dagger. The small and delicate dagger was razor sharp and there were engravings on its handle. It could be kept in a leather scabbard. Amy swung the dagger around as she said to Haga, I like it very much. Thank you, Big Orc. As long as you like it. Hee hee. Haga laughed. He was equally delighted. Mag saw that in the kitchen and he smilingly said to Mia, who was about to serve the dishes, give a bottle of rum to the Orc brothers at table 12. Tell them it's my treat. One naturally had to treat his friends who came from afar with a good liquor. I came to send you some clothes. Gloria walked over. Behind her, Mars was moving things down from a horse-drawn carriage. However, that black dress is rather complex and our tailors had already been working overtime to rush it out. Even then, I'm afraid it will only be completed in 2 days. Are you in a rush for it? Gloria asked apologetically. It's all right. Actually, I just mentioned it casually that day. Those clothes are rather complex to make. The tailors have worked hard for the past few days. Mag was apologetic as well. Those clothes were prepared for the actors from the Black Cat Opera troupe. The actors of the Black Cat Opera have good basics but their costumes were really too old. If, as an audience sitting downstage, you were watching a story about breaking free from the restraints of the aristocrats in pursuit of personal freedom and dreams but the wealthy master of the house was wearing patched clothes. It's very unrealistic. Mag had intended to take a trip to Rotu to settle the handover issues for Saipan Tavern. At the same time, he wanted to talk to Miss Black Cat about dreams and the future, as well as to send them some gifts. Mag received the clothes from Mars and told Gloria, take a seat. Gloria shook her head and said gently, it's all right. It's very late and you've just ended business, so you must be tired. Rest well and I shall not disturb you. In that case, do go home earlier. It's cold outside and I'm sorry to trouble you to come all the way here to personally deliver these, Mag said apologetically. He did not expect Gloria to put so much effort into this. She was already known to be a talented lady in business, comparable to Sheer, a rising star in Chaos City, and the heir to the Moraton family. I'll get the tailors to rush out the dress that's remaining and deliver it to you. Gloria bade farewell to Mag and left in her horse-drawn carriage. Mag watched the horse-drawn carriage disappear into the distance before pushing the pile of thick clothes into the restaurant. This little lady puts extra effort into matters with regards to you. Irina stood at the counter, looking at Mag with a seemingly gentle smile. Gloria is a very responsible person when it comes to work, Mag said without blushing. He placed the clothes on the counter and pulled out one of the costumes to take a look. The material used was of a very good quality, and it was even done better than what he had requested. The style was done exactly like how he had designed, and it was done very well. It seemed that Blue Suede's tailoring team had improved over this period. Otherwise, they would not be able to bring out such a high-quality product in a short span of time. I think everyone from the Black Cat Opera would like it. Mag put away the clothes. This little gift would be a token of his support for those chasing their dreams. Helena announced that she will go into seclusion after returning to the Wind Forest. Isn't that a little strange? Irina told Mag, who was looking at the clothes. She wasn't injured at the front line, right? Mag was rather shocked. She did not even meet an opponent worthy of her level. Where would the injury come from? In that case, that is rather strange. Mag frowned. One had to know that the situation in the Wind Forest was rather chaotic, and it was the kind of chaos Helena did not want to see. The Night Elves had torn apart the class system in the Wind Forest, and the passionate flame supporting freedom had been ignited everywhere in the forest. The elves in the lower class had started standing up, and the elves who had enjoyed the noble treatment had started reflecting on themselves. The threat from Thulho had been resolved, and the peace accord had been signed. By right, the first thing Helena would do upon returning to the Wind Forest should be to settle the chaos. However, she had actually gone into seclusion? There were no other arrangements made? Mag asked curiously. All she said was that she would pass everything to Sally to handle on her behalf. No other arrangements were made. Irina nodded. Could she really intend to ignore this matter? Mag was suspicious. Although Sally was the princess chosen by Helena and was also seen as the successor of the Elf Queen, she appeared to be sympathetic towards the Night Elves and the lower-class elves. Everyone could see that for themselves. She did not hold the same attitude as Helena on this issue. Right now, Helena suddenly announced her seclusion and threw the mess to Sally. That was something Mag did not expect. What do you intend to do? Mag asked Irina. I intend to do nothing. Irina shook her head and said with a smile, let Sally give it a go. After all, she is the elf princess right now, and I am but the lady boss of Mamie Restaurant. Mag smiled upon hearing that. Irina did not wish to return to inherit the throne from the elf queen. If Sally could do well, she would not have to go through the trouble of interfering. Power could be an addiction to some and a burden to others. Irina was the latter, and so was Mag. That's great. Isn't it better to just tend to Mamie Restaurant and be a carefree owner of a restaurant instead of having to worry about the world all day? From today on, Sean Edward will be the crown prince of the Roth Empire and will become the sole inheritor of the Roth Empire's throne. News from the Roth Empire broke out and caught the attention of the various races. Some were shocked while some expected it. Josh had been possessed by the devil and died at the front line of the ice sheets. Although Sean had lost an arm, he still managed to secure a free ticket to the throne. As for the third prince, who was obsessed with carpentry, no one would see him as a competitor for the throne. However, the feud between Sean and Alex was also something everyone was focused on. Alex had sealed the devil twice and saved Norland continent from a catastrophe, thus, earning respect from the various races. Previously, he had sworn to kill Sean. Now, Andre had made Sean the crown prince of the Roth Empire, and this could very well be a move to protect him. If Alex insisted on killing Sean, he would be pitting himself against the Roth Empire. Alex, who came from the Roth Empire, would probably have to think twice before taking action. Mag only found out about this on his second day after arriving at Rodu. Are you still going to kill him? Irina asked with a smile. I would still kill him if I should, but it is indeed not the right time now, Mag said with certainty. Saipan Tavern, which had been closed for days, was opened again. Master! You're finally back! Mela called out agitatedly as she stuck her head out from the second-floor window. Mag turned back and saw his little disciple in name. He said with a smile, I went out to play and I'm back now. Eofi also peeked her head out of the window. When she saw Mag and his family, she was surprised and shocked. Look, adults always give up so easily. However, Romo Street, which was thriving, was on its second peak. Mag, who owned half the street, was already reaping his harvest. Master. Before Mag even took a seat, Mela had already run in to greet everyone. She came over to Mag and said, "I've mastered the pig tongue salad." "Really?" Mag asked with a smile. I made one yesterday and young mistress said that it was delicious. It is already at a standard where it can be sold now." Mela nodded confidently. "I happen to have some pig tongues here. Make one for me now." Mag brought Mela into the kitchen and took out a pig tongue from the refrigerator. There were many standards for delicious food and Mag's standard was different from Eofi's standard. Mela had some talent in cooking and she was rather hard-working with her daily practice. However, he would still have to test if her cooking was up to his standards. "All right." Mela went over to take her apron, washed her hands, and started making the pig tongue salad. Mag stood by the kitchen door and nodded as he watched Mela's adept actions. It seemed that she put in a lot of hard work practicing over the past few days. This made Mag very glad. One might be very passionate about cooking at the start, but the hardest part was still the long-term persistence. Mela's attitude towards cooking was at least ambitious and serious. The pig tongue was put in a pot to braise and Mag asked Mela, who was waiting, "You are hard-working when it comes to cooking. What about being a shop owner? Are you prepared for that?" "A shop owner?" Mela blinked. She shook her head and said, "I can't. I really can't learn that. Is Saipan Tavern reopening?" "There have been many customers asking recently," Eofi said as she walked over with a smile. "I think our young mistress can do it." Mela quickly tossed the ball into Eofi's court and looked at the latter with pleading eyes. "I came over today to ask Miss Eofi how the thinking went and if you are willing to take over Saipan Tavern," Mag told Eofi with a smile. He would be a little worried if he were to hand Saipan Tavern over to Mela. However, Eofi was different. She had experience and she was also a smart woman. Eofi paused in her steps. She looked Mag in the eye and asked seriously, "Are you really not intending to run this tavern anymore?" "It was a tavern that I opened for fun right from the start. It was purely accidental that it could gain so much love from the customers. Right now, I have more important things to do, so I can only hand this tavern over to someone more suitable to run it." Mag looked at Eofi and said, "For example, you, Miss Eofi." "No. Saipan Tavern was not popular by chance." Eofi shook her head. "Mr. Hades, you're a professional. Be it the shop's location and renovation, or the drinks and dishes, they were all above the other taverns in Rodu. No one could do it as well as you." Mag smiled. This was something he could not deny. However, Eofi was speaking the truth. No matter who took over Saipan Tavern, with the Mao Tai and whiskey at hand, he would still be sitting on the top spot. That was all. One could only guard the top spot but not become better. This was also what Mag admired about Eofi. She had a good eye for such things. However, there must be something more important that you have to attend to for Saipan Tavern to be the one you are giving up. There was a hint of regret in her eyes. Although she had expected it, the thought of not being able to enjoy free meals made her heart ache. "Miss Eofi, you do not need to be stressed over this. After all, Titan Tavern is still very busy too. If you aren't able to withstand the pressure of handling 2 taverns, I can find someone else." Mag comforted her. He felt that he was asking for a bit too much. Eofi looked at Mag, took a deep breath in, and said with resolution, "I am willing to take over Saipan Tavern." Mag was slightly shocked but smiled. "You're giving too much. I think this is something few would reject," Eofi said as a matter of factly. According to what Mag had promised previously, if Eofi was willing to take over Saipan Tavern, she could receive 30% of its shares. Judging from Saipan Tavern's current development, that would be a very big harvest. Moreover, Mag promised to supply the alcohol. All Eofi had to do was manage the tavern. That was nothing difficult to her at all. Saipan Tavern was already popular, so all she had to do was maintain it and make Saipan Tavern's popularity carry on. In that case, let's sign an agreement. Mag brought out a contract from the counter and passed it to Eofi. Eofi looked through the contract seriously and had a rather strange expression. She looked up at Mag and said, "Why were you so certain that I would take over? I am always a good judge of character." Mag smiled. Eofi signed the contract and Mag also penned his name down. From today onwards, Mag had another shop that could run on its own besides the ice cream shop. This was the so-called passive income. He could have money rolling in by doing nothing at all. Fantastic! Since the contract was signed, Eofi could be considered as one of them. Mag told her to stay for lunch and went into the kitchen to cook. Mela was watching the pig tongue in the pot at the side. As she watched Mag cook, she said, "Oh, right, Master. Maestro Vicky, whom you told me about, really came. Is the opera house open?" Mag asked casually. Mm. It has opened and the performance last night was a huge success. The theatre was half full and the response of the audience was rather good. Mela nodded. She seemed rather excited talking about the opera house. "I am going over to practice in the afternoon." "You're learning opera as well?" Mag was rather shocked. I'm just learning for fun." Mela said guiltily as her eyes darted around, afraid to look at Mag. "It's great to have your own interest." "There's nothing to be embarrassed about," Mag said with a smile. He could guess what she was thinking. Upon hearing Mag's words, Mela's eyes lit up. She nodded and said, "Opera is really super fun. Those actors are all talented. They sing very well too and I love it. I am intending to watch a show after lunch." "Is there an afternoon show?" Yes. There are fewer people during the afternoon shows so the tickets even have a 20% discount." Mela nodded. Mag smiled. He was rather curious about what kind of surprise he would get from the opera troupe that had moved into a theatre from the rundown open-air courtyard. He could see that she had been practicing hard. Mag was very satisfied with this disciple. Mela stood next to the table with her hands behind her back as she nervously said to Mag, "Please taste it." Mag picked up a piece of pig's tongue with the chopsticks. He put it under his nose and smelled it first. He raised his eyebrows before putting the pig's tongue into his mouth. The slightly crunchy pig tongue was covered with red oil and spicy sauce. It was thoroughly marinated and it got increasingly fragrant as he chewed. It was indeed not bad. Mag put down his chopsticks and nodded at Mela with a smile. "Not bad, but it's about 1,000 plates away from being able to be sold in the tavern. There's a problem with the making of the red oil. It tastes slightly charred and there's still room for improvement for the pig tongue's texture. You need to practice more before you can thoroughly understand it." "Yes, I got it." Mela listened to Mag seriously before nodding solemnly. Eofi also picked up a piece of pig tongue and interrupted. "I think it's good enough to be served in the tavern as a side dish. The customers will have nothing to eat while they sit at the table when Saipan Tavern reopens if this dish is not available as well." Amy said happily as she chewed on the pig tongue, "It's so delicious. Big Sister Mela's culinary skills have improved. We need to have a certain standard when we operate a tavern." Mag shook his head and said to Eofi, "Quality can decide the difference between one tavern from the others. I hope Saipan Tavern can always be that beautiful and exquisite existence. Making do is a kind of poison. Once you start it, you will lose your baseline." Eofi looked at Mag quietly for a while before she nodded and said, "I understand." Although he had washed his hands off the tavern, Mag still hoped Saipan Tavern could always maintain its standard. Eofi left after lunch. The first thing she needed to do after taking over the tavern was to recruit a new batch of employees. Even though Saipan Tavern already had 6 service staff members, it was far from enough. After all, not everyone could multitask like Mag. They need to have cashiers, servers, cooks and... It wasn't practical for Saipan Tavern to reopen for business immediately. She needed to rebuild a group of staff. Let's go watch the opera in the afternoon today. Mag cleared away the cutlery and said to all of them. Amy's eyes lit up as she asked, "Are we watching Miss Black Cat?" Annie was also looking at Mag with anticipation. Yes. The Black Cat Opera House has already moved to our street. Let's go over right now. Mag nodded with a smile. He picked up that big bag of clothes and led his family and Mela over to the nearby Black Cat Opera House. Soon, Mag came to Building 101. This venue, which was once a circus, looked brand new after it was cleaned up. A simple wooden sign hung on the door and it said, Black Cat Opera Troupe. There was a drizzle in Rodel last night, so the paint had faded off slightly. They still looked poor even after changing locations. It was indeed rare to see such a poor opera troupe. The door of the opera house was semi-open, but a wooden plaque hanging on the door had the timing written on it. The afternoon show started at 1 p.m., which was 30 minutes from now. I forgot to mention that it's not time yet, Mela shrugged and said with embarrassment. It's fine. I happen to have something to discuss with Miss Vicky, Mag replied with a smile and then walked in first. Mela quickly caught up with him. Irina brought the 2 children in. Annie was even carrying a picture book. It was a little dark in the theatre. The sunlight that shone through the small windows couldn't provide enough light. Perhaps because they were poor, other than the stage, no other areas had oil lamps. The oil lamps were not lit up right now, either. The stage in the center had been simply modified. The newly painted surface made it look like an opera house. However, the seats below the stage were too simple. Only long benches were set up, which looked messy and crowded. Watching opera in such conditions wouldn't be a particularly good experience. The people in the opera troupe had just had lunch and were about to rest when they heard some sounds at the door. They all looked towards it. Hello, the afternoon show has not started yet. Please come back again later. Old Man Me went forward to greet them. Mela jumped out and said, Old Man Me, this is my master. He's here to look for the maestro. Old Man Me walked closer and finally saw Mag's looks clearly. With shock on his face, he said, It's you, sir. It was all because of this benefactor that the Black Cat Opera could move here from the dilapidated small courtyard and slowly become famous. Not only did he provide them with a venue, he even gave them enough money to tide over through the hard times. Everyone in the opera troupe remembered his kindness. Old Man Me turned around and shouted, Maestro! That benefactor is here. Everyone in the opera troupe crowded over and smiled when they saw Mag and his family. They had a deep impression of this family, mainly because the 2 young maidens were so cute that they were unforgettable. Vicky, who was wearing a black Lolita dress, quickly strode out from the backstage. She stopped in front of Mag and smiled. You're finally back. I heard that your opera troupe has already begun its operations when I came here today. I intended to watch one performance, but it seems like I have come too early, Mag also replied with a smile. Mag was rather respectful to this maiden who had a dual personality because you never knew what personality she would take on in the next moment. It's indeed not time yet, but please take a seat here. I still haven't thanked you properly regarding the theatre. Vicky led Mag and his family to the maestro's office at the back. Although it was called the maestro's office, it was just a small and shabby office. It only had a wooden table that had one of its missing legs replaced and 2 long benches. Vicky's seat was an old wooden chair. Perhaps it was used as the boss chair. The theatre is still at its start-up phase, so it's a little shabby. I've embarrassed myself in front of you, Vicky said openly without any tinge of shame. We've got a place to sit, so it's pretty good. Mag's review of her became more favorable inwardly. Vicky bowed to Mag and gratefully said, "Thank you for providing a venue for Black Cat Opera and giving us so much support." "Don't mention it. It's your talent that touched me." Mag smiled and waved his hand. "Moreover, isn't this a business that is beneficial to the both of us?" Vicky smiled too, but she didn't feel any less grateful towards Mag. Mag's investment and support for their opera troupe was equivalent to being life-saving. It pulled them out of the mud and back from the brink of disbanding. Vicky would always remember that kindness. "I came for one more thing today. Annie has already illustrated the story of Miss Black Cat. Can you check if it is up to your expectations?" Mag said. Annie came forward and passed the picture book in her arms to Vicky. Outside of the high walls, was freedom. Vicky stared at the picture book's cover in a daze for a long time before she finally smiled. The picture was intricate and beautiful and the Miss Black Cat looked very much like her. Most importantly, choosing the scene of her scaling over the high walls in the dark as the cover suited her thoughts perfectly. Then, she opened the picture book and read through it seriously. The storytelling of the picture book was slightly different from the opera's. Some of the sequences were switched, but it didn't affect the storytelling at all. Instead, it suited the picture book's way of storytelling more. Some of the contents were removed, as the opera had very long singing parts and the picture book simplified them. It made the story more concise and it moved at a faster pace. Vicky finished reading half of the picture book in about 10 minutes. She closed the picture book gently like a treasure before standing up to seriously say to Annie, "Thank you so much for giving this story a brand new life." Annie was slightly stunned. Then, she revealed a happy smile and said with sign language, "It's you who created this story and I am very honored to have been able to illustrate it. It's so excellently drawn and has completely exceeded my expectations. I like it very much and am very satisfied with it." Vicky reiterated. "Thank you." Annie smiled reservedly, but it was obvious that she was very happy. Mag curved his lips slightly into a smile. He guessed it felt rather good to be acknowledged by the original author. It seemed like drawing comics was indeed very suitable for Annie. It allowed her to gain more recognition. Since Miss Vicky is very satisfied with Annie's illustrations, let's discuss the licensing of the picture book's copyright, Mag said to Vicky. "Does Mr. Hades intend to print out this picture book?" Vicky asked. "Yes. I think this is an excellent picture book. Be it the core of the story, or the drawing style, they are both very excellent." Mag nodded. "Furthermore, I'm trying to launch a picture book business, and I think this book is quite a good start." Vicky looked at Mag and pondered. In the underground city, copyright was a very important thing and there was a series of stringent laws that protected licensing. An excellent work usually could get rather good licensing revenue. However, on the Norland continent, the laws in this area weren't well covered. Although there was an awareness of copyright exclusivity, there weren't many reference cases regarding such licensing that crossed genres. The story of Miss Black Cat had a special meaning to Vicky, but Annie had really drawn it so well that it showcased the core of the story perfectly. If this story was spread in the form of picture books, it would have rather good results and sales. It should be able to bring some popularity to the Black Cat Opera House. Moreover, she was very in need of money right now. Be it the opera house's renovation, or the recruitment of new actors, she needed a big sum of money urgently. "How does Mr. Hades intend to collaborate?" Vicky asked. Although she wasn't sure of Mag's background, she simply felt that he was a trustworthy partner. Mag directly said, "Regarding the exclusive copyright licensing of Miss Black Cat's picture book, I have two choices for you. 1. A 5 million copper coins outright buyout, which means I give you 5 million and I'll get the picture book's copyright of Miss Black Cat and I won't be paying you any fees in the future. Or 2. After deducting the cost according to the sales, I'll give you 20% of the profit. This is a long-term revenue and has an unknown and an uncertain outcome, but it might bring you some unexpected rewards." 5 million copper coins. Vicky's brain went blank. This was, without a doubt, a huge sum to her, who was always thinking about how to use one copper coin to support the whole opera troupe. Even after making a trip back to the underground city, she still didn't want any help from her family. She thought Mag might offer tens of thousands of copper coins and even decided to agree to deal at 100,000 copper coins. That 100,000 copper coins could do a simple upgrade for the opera house. At least she could replace those shabby long benches, upgrade the lighting and get a firm bed for each troupe member. She never expected Mag would offer her a high price of 5 million right away. One had to know that before this, Miss Black Cat was still a story that nobody knew and was purely for self-entertainment. Even now, it was only popular among the Romo Street's neighbors. Mag had really offered her too much. Mag looked at her smilingly. He didn't hurry her. He could see that Vicky's identity wasn't simple. However, she had a stubborn character, so he didn't know what decision she would make. "Did you say 5 million copper coins?" Vicky asked Mag with uncertainty. "Yes. This is the best price that I can offer currently." Mag nodded. This was already way above the copyright fees of all the picture books in the market right now. Did Vicky still find it lacking? Mag raised his eyebrows slightly. Miss Black Cat was indeed quite a good story. It was very refreshing in the current picture book market where it was full of cheesy love stories. He could consider offering more. "Do you think it's too little?" Mag asked. No. Vicky shook her head. After realizing Mag seemed to be mistaken, she quickly explained, 5 million copper coins is too much. I mean, do you need to reconsider it? Just as you said, it has a great uncertainty. Although the opera troupe really needed money right now, Vicky didn't want to cheat Mr. Hades. He had rescued the Black Cat opera troupe from the mud and given them a new environment to grow in. "I'm a businessman, so I make every decision after thinking about it thoroughly. Since I offered you 5 million, it means that you're worth this price." Mag smiled. He began to like Vicky even better. This maiden was young but she had very good values. Vicky saw Mag didn't look forced, so after thinking for a while, she said, "Then I'll choose option 1, the 5 million copper coins to buy the copyright of Miss Black Cat's picture book." She could do a lot with 5 million copper coins and she earned it with her own ability, so she could use it on the opera troupe without any stress. "Are you sure you don't want the long-term revenue option?" "Yes. The opera troupe needs a sum of money urgently right now. I think it is a better choice." Vicky nodded with conviction. Perhaps the long-term revenue might have given more room for imagination, but the opera troupe needed an immediate sum of money more. Mag was the benefactor that she had met at the lowest point of her life. "Don't stand on ceremony. After all, I'm one of the Black Cat Opera's shareholders. I hope the opera troupe can become better too," Mag said smilingly and brought a package over. "There are a few clothes here. I saw that some of the actors' clothes are rather old, so I custom-made a batch of stage costumes for them. I based most of them on Annie's comics." "This is so kind of you." Vicky opened the package and her eyes lit up when she saw all the opulent clothes. The clothes that the actors were wearing now were almost all made by themselves. They had no choice, as custom-making a single costume would cost at least a few thousands copper coins. Initially, the first thing that she was going to do after receiving the money was to change costumes for the troupe members. She didn't expect Mag to have prepared it for them so considerately. Mag continued on. "Your dress is a little more complicated so it's not done yet. I'll send it to you in a few days." Vicky's black Lolita dress was rather old too, but since it was black and layered, it didn't look too obvious that it was old. I am fine." Vicky blushed when she heard that Mag wanted to give her a dress. "I'll let this theatre to your opera troupe for 5 years at the price of 1 copper coin and I'll reserve the 2 adjacent buildings for you guys too. If you want to expand the venue, feel free to look for me." Mag looked at his watch. It's almost time for your performance, so we'll go wait outside. I guess you guys need some time to change into your costumes too. Mr. Hades, thank you and your family for supporting Black Cat Opera. Vicky stood up and bowed to Mag and his family. Mag waved his hands and left the maestro's office. Vicky gathered the troupe members backstage and distributed the clothes that Mag brought to them. Old Man Me looked at the new opulent costume in his hands and exclaimed in surprise. Maestro, when did you custom make new costumes for us? Yes. This fabric feels so comfortable. It must be very expensive, right? Whoa. It fits perfectly. Everyone was chattering and expressing their satisfaction with the costumes. I didn't custom make them for you all. It's a gift from Mr. Hades, Vicky said with a smile. She didn't expect Mr. Hades to be so considerate that everyone's costumes fitted perfectly. Whoa! This boss is simply too nice. Not only did he provide us with a venue, he even prepared the costumes for us. Yes. If it wasn't for him, we would still be starving in that dilapidated yard. But, Maestro, you didn't sell us away as well, right? All of them couldn't help asking Vicky questions while they lamented. They had gone through a lot of hardship in the past 2 years, so they knew there wouldn't be kindness that came from nothing. Mr. Hades has invested in our opera troupe, so he's one of the opera troupe's bosses. However, he won't be interfering in the theater's operations, so you guys don't have to worry. I won't increase the control of the opera troupe, Vicky said with a comforting smile. All of them heaved a breath of relief. After all, Maca Opera had tried to swallow them up earlier and poached a few of their members. Now, they had one more boss, but it wouldn't have any influence on the opera troupe. Instead, they seemed to have found a reliable supporter. Ibeka looked at the remaining costumes and said with a complex expression, the remaining costumes should be for Bayo and the rest, right? All of them looked at the 6 or 7 pieces of clothing left in the bag and thought of their former companions. They all became a little sad. Why are we still thinking about those ungrateful people? They are no longer one of our Black Cat Opera troupe members when they leave, Old Man Me said angrily. Don't say that. Bayo has gone through thick and thin with us too. The opera troupe was already in a desperate situation. Even if they had stayed, I had thought of bringing you all to join Maca Opera too. After all, our survival is the most important thing. Vicky shook her head slightly. I'm going to talk to them in a few days. I hope all of you can accept them if they're willing to come back. Every troupe member was brought back by Vicky. They lived together for 2 years as she turned them from noobs into professional opera actors. Their relationships and the effort she put in made it hard for her to give up on any of the actors. Now that she had money and an opera house, it was time to invite all the troupe members that were poached back. The opera troupe lacked manpower severely and one person had to take on 2 people's jobs, which decreased the opera's level of completion. If she could get all the troupe members that had left back, this situation would be greatly alleviated. Moreover, she also needed to consider having a plan to groom opera actors in the long term. The lifespan of an opera actor was short and a professional opera troupe needed to have fresh blood constantly. Ibeka sighed. Yes, 4 shared a bed with me on the night before he left. He tossed and turned and got up to drink water a few times. He asked me softly if we would have more food to eat if there were fewer people around. All of them fell silent. That period of time was indeed hard and all of them had thoughts of leaving before. Vicky clapped her hands and said, "All right. Let's change and prepare to go on stage." Outside of the theatre, Pascal said to the young master next to him with a flattering expression, "Young master, I finally found out that the Black Cat Opera has moved over here." Bobby, who was dressed in luxurious clothes, looked at the wooden signboard that was hung up high with a frown. "Didn't you say that they couldn't go on for long? How did they move to Romo Street all of a sudden and have such a big opera house?" Pascal's expression froze. His eyeballs shifted around quickly as he said, "I guess they moved in on their own." Didn't Romo Street become deserted for the past 2 years? This was once a circus and it was abandoned. They most probably moved in on their own, just like that abandoned yard previously. It's possible too. Bobby nodded. He knew the Black Cat Opera's situation very well. They didn't have money for food, so they couldn't have the money to rent such a huge venue. Be polite when you go in later, but you must get Vicky to join your Maca opera. Bobby straightened his clothes and walked into the opera house. Pascal patted his chest and said, "Of course, of course. Don't worry about it." The performance was about to start and yet the theater was still pitch dark. They couldn't even bear to light up a lamp. Although they changed the venue to an indoor one, he guessed not many people would want to come to such a theater. This opera troupe most likely still survived by eating dirt. However, the few actors that he poached from Black Cat Opera were really good to use. Not only were they professional, they didn't eat much or want much. They had basically become the main support of Maca Opera. Although Bobby paid quite well, what made him go after Black Cat Opera so relentlessly was because he wanted to poach the remaining actors. As for that uncontrollable woman, it would be best if Bobby could bring her away. He couldn't help but be scared when he thought of how she scratched him bloody that day. He didn't understand why young Master Bobby liked such a type. Perhaps he had a fetish and liked to be beaten up? Don't let people know that we know each other. Bobby pulled his hand away from Pascal and arranged his clothes. Sure, sure. Pascal nodded smartly and quickly walked 2 steps forward. The opera house was rather big. After all, it had taken over the previous location of a circus. However, even though those long benches were neatly arranged, it still looked very miserable. Apart from a few people sitting in the front row, the entire venue was empty. It looked very deserted. Bobby swept a quick look across the theater and sighed secretly. The Black Cat Opera was still deserted even after it shifted to Romo Street. One had to know that there were 2 taverns who had just received the Gold Awards at the liquor tasting and attracted plenty of attention on Romo Street. He had gone to Titan Tavern for a drink with his friends earlier. He was still worried that Vicky had found a financial backer when Pascal brought him here today. Looking at the situation now, it appeared it was the way Pascal had described. He was sure that the Black Cat Opera simply took over this building and used it as a temporary theater. Miss Vicky is a maiden with a noble character. She must have her reasons for doing such a thing. For her to end up suffering like this, I'm simply too useless. Bobby was deep in his self-reproach. Usually, there aren't many people watching the afternoon show, but the maestro insists on having 2 shows a day, Mela explained to Magham. It's good to have more practice. Mag nodded. His gaze swept over the empty opera house and landed on Pascal and Bobby, who had just entered the theater. "Father, isn't that the maestro of that opera troupe that made us sleepy?" Amy asked softly. "Oh yes." Mag smiled too. He remembered the man walking in the front too. It was the maestro of the opera troupe that they had gone to for the first time. If he remembered correctly, it was called Maca Opera. Its actors were quite amateurish, their performance was very slipshod and their singing was sleep-inducing. The only good point was that it was really very nice to fall asleep to. If he had released a viewing guide, it would say, "Please bring your own pillow and blanket." Speaking of which, he should be Black Cat Opera's competitor. So what was he doing here? Trying to cause trouble? Mag looked at the young master in luxurious clothes behind him. He heard their conversation earlier, so looking at it, this should be the boss. As Black Cat Opera's behind-the-scenes shareholder, Mag sat tight and prepared to watch a good show. What a joke! Miss Black Cat wasn't a kitten who could be easily bullied, since she could lead a group of dependents and survive at the bottom of society. In comparison, that young master looked like the real weakling. Pascal walked over to the stage and looked around. He went straight backstage after he failed to see anyone. Bobby found a seat in the first row. He looked calm but he couldn't help shaking his right leg, which exposed his perturbed emotions. An angry yell sounded behind him as soon as Pascal pulled open the curtain. "Sir, this is the backstage. You darn fatty! What are you doing here again?" Pascal's hand trembled and the curtain fell away from his hand. He couldn't help taking 2 steps backwards. "This maestro is weak." Mag frowned slightly. He was scared by one of the actors. The curtain was pulled back again and Mr. Ibeka in black opulent clothes stepped out. He looked awe-inspiring when he glared at Pascal. Mr. Ibeka played the role of Miss Black Cat's father in the opera, who was a rich old master. Ibeka, who was already immersed in his role, crushed Pascal with his presence. Pascal actually didn't dare to answer him at that moment. "Who's that?" Bobby was also sizing up Ibeka carefully. This man in grand clothes had a certain prestige and he looked even more majestic than his father. "Why, Yuri, the actor that played the master." Pascal only recognized Ibeka after looking at him for some time. Apart from feeling amused, he also felt angry that he was actually frightened by a small actor. Right then, an energetic voice spoke up from behind the curtain and an elegant lady dressed in opulent clothes walked out. She reproached Pascal with a severe gaze. "Ha! Where did this imbecile come from? How dare you make trouble here?" Pascal was terrified by this reproach. Even a noble lady might not have such an overwhelming presence, so he couldn't help but size her up again. Even though Maca opera had never been popular, he had seen many people from the upper society too. He was rather sensitive to how the rich were dressed. This woman's attire and pose were much more noble than many noble ladies. A gentleman at the side chuckled and said, "Yo! The actors all have new clothes today." Pascal only regained his wits at that moment. This was no noble lady, either. She was just an actor who was used to playing a rich lady. Pascal didn't expect to be frightened by 2 actors twice in a row. He couldn't help being furious and angrily said, "Why, you two, get lost! Get lost!" "Ha!" Someone sneered and the curtain was pulled up. Vicky walked out and coldly said to Pascal, "Who the heck are you?" Even though the petite Vicky was standing among the actors, her presence couldn't be concealed. That arrogant gaze was just as if a noble young mistress was looking down at rotten scum on the ground. It was just like the arrival of a young mistress. It was obvious that the Black Cat Opera had most likely found a wealthy sponsor. Just the opulent costumes alone would have cost tens of thousands of copper coins to custom make. Hence, this theatre must be rented by them instead of illegally occupied. Pascal quickly smiled brightly. "Ahem, Maestro Vicky, why do you sound so distant now? Didn't we have a couple of friendly conversations before? I'm Pascal, the Maestro of Maca Opera. A few of your companions are even our troupe members now. Even if you have found a rich sponsor now, you cannot turn your back on us." The situation was quite different from what he had imagined. The promise that he had made to Bobby earlier was most likely going to fail. He had to try again. After all, his sponsor was looking at him from behind, he had to do something. Mag curved his lips into a smile gradually as he watched them. The development was quite different from what he anticipated. However, this maestro was rather observant and knew how to adjust his tactics to the situation. He wasn't a hasty pig, but he really needed to improve on the way that he talks. Meanwhile, Bobby couldn't help shaking and clenching his fists when he heard Pascal's words and saw the actors in opulent clothes. He was so angry that he was trembling and he suddenly felt flushed with an icy cold sweat. He felt as though he was suddenly plunged into an icy world stark naked and the real world had left him behind. Did she, finally go and look for other sponsors? In order to let the actors have opulent costumes, food and a stage to perform and stay. But why didn't she go look for him? Instead, she went looking for someone else? He felt pain. He opened his mouth, but he couldn't speak. However, it was fine that he couldn't speak. Everyone in the opera troupe was very angry. They instantly exploded after they heard Pascal's words. They were just remembering their friends who had left them in those difficult times earlier, and this culprit came to show off here. Ibeka said to Pascal coldly, "I'm not hitting you because I want to give the audience a good impression." The noble lady at the side chimed in. "But you'd better not let us see you outside of the theater, otherwise, your face will be split open." "I promise." Pascal took 2 steps back in fear and he went pale. These people were scary after they had full bellies. "Actually, I came to discuss with Maestro Vicky about our collaboration. We're all in the same business. Everyone knows that there are only 2 opera troupes in Rodu. Now, nobody understands opera, and if we can cooperate and let more people know what opera is, we can increase the market share. Isn't that great?" Pascal said to Vicky seriously. "Ha, not only do others not know about opera, I don't think you know about opera either," Vicky said coldly. She wasn't looking down at Pascal, but given Maca Opera's standard, they were maligning opera instead. The audience went to watch the opera with great expectations, but they had a good sleep instead. After that, they only remembered the good sleep and nothing else, so who would pay to watch opera in an opera house again? This chap, whose brain was only filled with how to earn money from the audience's pockets, was in fact, the cancer in the opera world. "You can insult me, but you cannot insult my professional skill," Pascal said sternly. "Discussing opera with you is insulting to this art form." Vicky pursed her lips. "Why you?" Pascal was furious, but there was nothing he could do. The Black Cat Opera Group was leading a rich life now, he could no longer see the desire for food in their eyes. It was obviously not practical to try to lure them into joining Maca Opera. With Vicky's attitude, it was impossible for these 2 opera troupes to merge. Pascal said with a flustered exasperation, "Don't think everything will be fine just because you got yourself a rich sponsor. You have to serve that rich man in the future, so you won't have much time to perform on stage." Vicky turned cold and a hint of killing intent appeared in her eyes. However, before she could speak, a low voice spoke up in the audience. "Shut up! You shut up!" Bobby stood up suddenly and flipped the bench over. He clenched his fists and looked at Vicky with a tortured expression. Pascal immediately chickened out when Bobby spoke out, and he cowardly said, "Young Master Bobby, she has already gotten together with someone else. Get out of here!" Bobby roared at him. Pascal immediately stood to the side quietly. Mag and his family already began to munch on melon seeds as they watched the show unravel in front of them. Bobby's expression interchanged from pain to relief to confusion and understanding. The opera actors present even marveled at him. Bobby said to Vicky lovingly, "Miss Vicky, so you actually knew so many rich friends. Why didn't you tell me before? You must be afraid that I will overthink it, right? You always think of me. You're so good to me and I like you more and more. That works too." Mag raised his eyebrows and glared, as he tilted his head to look at Bobby. "Ha, is this the so-called deeply in love trope?" Irina also asked smilingly. "No, this can only be called a bootlicker," Mag said inwardly. Vicky showed a slightly disgusted expression. She looked at Bobby coldly. "I already made it very clear that I don't like you. Can you please disappear from my vision? I won't let you off if you use such scums to irritate me again." Bobby stumbled 2 steps back, clutched his chest and said with a pained expression, "Don't push me away. I just want to see you every day. You can choose the location, be it the forest, the desert, the lake at night, the grassland, the sea, or the street's entrance in the early morning. As long as it isn't in my dreams again. Go back and sleep early. You can have everything in your dreams," Vicky answered coldly. Bobby looked at Vicky in a stunned manner, his feet rooted to the ground. His tears already began to fall from the corner of his eyes. He heard the sound of something breaking. Perhaps, it was his heart. "Maybe he is better and more suitable for you. Go then, I'll set you free. However, you have to remember that if one day you want to come back, I'll be here waiting for you. Always. Your body is weak. Ask him to be gentle, or my heart will ache, Bobby sobbed as he said. Get lost. Vicky grabbed a stool at the side. Calm down, maestro. All the actors grabbed onto her. Let's go, young master. Pascal also helped Bobby out quickly. Bobby stumbled on his way out, looking very lost. He looks just like a dog, Amy looked at Bobby's back and said. Mag nodded in agreement. He ended up with nothing after all this bootlicking. Mela went to the entrance to help sell the tickets. As the all-rounder in the opera theatre, she could receive guidance from all the actors for free by helping to sell the tickets. 10 minutes later, Miss Black Cat started and there were just 10 or so customers in the whole theatre. However, the actors who had just changed into their new costumes, still gave the audience a great opera show. This opera is really interesting. Irina looked at the actors bowing on the stage with a smile. She didn't go when they went to watch the opera previously. It was her first time watching an opera today. The elves can sing and dance very well. It might be a great idea if we can form an elven opera troupe. Mag suggested seriously. This was the elves' tradition and they would hold bonfire parties on the empty fields at the textile factory every night if the weather permitted. Mag also liked to watch the beautiful elves dance gently as they sang mesmerizing songs. Of course, it was the children's request. Irina pondered seriously for a while before nodding. This is a good idea. It would be even better if we could write an opera based on the night elves. We have to talk to Maestro Vicky regarding the script. There's no one more professional than her in this area, Mag said as he flicked a glance at Vicky, who was walking towards them. Vicky approached them and smilingly asked, Mr. Hades, are you and your family satisfied with the performance? It was a marvelous performance. Mag nodded. The actors in their new costumes made the performance look even more natural and convincing. But, where are some of the actors? Why are there so many people missing? The opera troupe had 15 to 16 people, but there were only 9 of them on the stage today, including Mela whose role had no dialogue. Vicky smilingly said, they have lost their way temporarily, but I believe they will return very soon. Mag nodded thoughtfully. He believed that had something to do with Pascal, which was why the opera troupe people were so angry at him. However, even when they were short of so many people, Vicky and the actors still put on a completed opera. Big sister Vicky, you guys must be very rich, right? Amy asked curiously. Vicky was slightly stunned before she smilingly said, does I think that I look like a young mistress from a rich family? Yes. Amy nodded with conviction. Perhaps. Vicky nodded with a smile, but didn't clarify further. The performance in the evening will start a little later. I would like to give you and your family a treat to thank you for your assistance to the opera troupe, Vicky said. Why don't we eat at my place? I will cook and it's more comfortable to eat at home. Mag suggested. Will it be too troublesome for you? Don't worry. I rather like to cook. Then, I shall go eat at your place, Vicky replied with a smile. Mag and his family returned to the tavern first. He got Mela to inform Eofi to come over for dinner as well. Irina walked one round in the tavern before she opened the back door to look at the plants which were growing well in the backyard. She lamented. I can't bear to leave her after only staying here for a month. Mag walked behind her and smilingly said, then, we shall come back to stay here for a few days every month. We can keep it as a holiday home. Irina's eyes lit up and she said with a smile, this suggestion is not bad. We can trim the plants once every month, which is just nice. New mission, strengthen neighborly relationships. As the saying goes, an afar-off relative is not as helpful as a near neighbor. Could the host please cook a meal for your neighbors to promote close neighborly relationships? Amy, who was tying little ponytails for Ugly Duckling, suddenly received a mission from the system. Amy was unmoved and she snapped back, "Stupid system, this action will only destroy neighborly relationships, alright. Life experience system. Why don't you change the mission to weaken neighborly relationships? I will only have to insist on cooking a meal for them daily and it will be achievable." Amy continued on. "As a chosen host, how can you give up so easily? Good neighborly relationships needed to be maintained. This is also a part of life experiences. Could the host please complete the mission?" Knock knock. Someone knocked on the door. Amy got up and ran to the door. She grabbed the door handle on her tiptoes and pulled the door open. "Wow! You're so pretty today, big sister Eofi. I likes it so much. I want a hug from you." "Really? I is also very cute. Come, let big sister hug you." Eofi smiled brightly as she scooped Amy up and kissed her on her rosy cheeks. Favorability from Eofi plus 99. Life experience system. The young system was still taught a lesson by the juvenile host. Mission to strengthen neighborly relationships is cancelled. A row of small words drifted across her mind silently. Eofi brought Mela over too. She was following after Eofi with 2 bottles of liquor. As the lady of the house, Irina politely said with a smile, "You just need to show up. Why are you still bringing us gifts? We feel rather embarrassed to come eat at your place every day." Eofi hugged Amy and laughingly answered, "One of them is brewed by me, while the other is the cellar-aged liquor brewed by my father." Other than feeling envy for Mr. Hades' beautiful wife, Eofi could not feel jealous of her at all. After all, she was simply too beautiful. Even she couldn't help staring at her as a woman. In comparison, it felt like Hades was the one who had taken advantage of her. Moreover, both of her daughters were clever and adorable. Although they were still young, it was already obvious that they would turn out to be as beautiful as their mother. It was a pity that she couldn't even be his concubine. "No, no. I am Eofi. How can I be a concubine?" Eofi dispelled the messy thoughts from her head and corrected her morals again. Vicky came too. She was also holding onto a little box. "Maestro." Mela greeted her enthusiastically. "Mela, Miss Eofi, you guys are here too." Vicky was a little surprised. She knew Eofi too because of Mela. Besides, Titan Tavern was the most popular tavern on Romo Street now and Eofi even recommended the Opera House to many of her customers. "Yes. We came to eat here for free again today." Eofi nodded with a smile. She felt that she seemed to have gotten used to coming here for a free meal. She felt a little desolate when she recalled that Mr. Hades and his family wouldn't be coming back for a long time. She didn't know if it was because she couldn't come here to eat anymore, or if it was because of something else. They had completely inherited their mother's perfect genes. "You are too. It would be better if you could grow a little taller." Irina received the gift with a smile. She glanced at Vicky's bust and held herself back. The corners of Vicky's mouth twitched a little. Although she was a little pissed, she let the matter go on account of Irina's beautiful face. She was just too beautiful. I think I will still grow taller. After all, I am still young and small." Vicky nodded. Age was her biggest advantage. After all, she looked around the same age as Annie. Still a little too small." Irina nodded. Vicky. She was trying very hard to stand with her chest out to prove that she was not small. "It's all right. I'll find a day to come and tell you a good method, it's guaranteed to make you grow quickly," Eofi whispered softly to Vicky with a smile as she put her arms around her. "Don't touch me." Vicky turned her head but could not help but reply softly, "Does it really work?" "Tried and tested." Eofi smiled a very meaningful smile. Vicky looked into the abyss of her eyes for a while and quickly smiled. "I'll follow your arrangements." The women continued chatting. The atmosphere was rather harmonious. Mag was cooking in the kitchen. He turned back to look at Irina and smiled. Irina did not have many friends. Perhaps it was due to her status, other than Firis, she did not have a single close friend at all. Therefore, she seemed a little distant from others when conversing. However, after stripping herself of the identity of a princess, she was rather friendly when talking to others with the status of the lady boss of a tavern. This was great. One might be able to oversee the mountains high up in the clouds, but it is too boring and lonely up there. Walking down from the clouds and into the world would enable one to experience emotions and become more alive. Mag made quite a lot of dishes. There was grilled fish, red braised beef, beggar's chicken, and a few other dishes from Mamie Restaurant's menu that had been improved. Mamie Restaurant was famous after all. Mag did not want them to link him and the restaurant together, so he did a simple change and even brought them over by saying that he was self-taught. Gulp. Vicky looked at the delicious dishes on the table and could not help but swallow her saliva. What kind of immortal is this? He could actually cook up such a feast alone in the kitchen, and the food actually looked very delicious. Initially, she did not hold high expectations when Mag said he cooks at home. However, she could not really reject it since her sponsor was the one who suggested for her to join in. She did not actually expect this feast. She had never felt such a craving for food, even when she attended a high-end banquet in the underground city. After all, the food that looked exquisite did not really taste that good. Moreover, the food did not smell this good as well. Mr. Hades, please inform me if you were to open up a restaurant one day. That way I would have a place to settle my 3 meals a day, Eofi told Mag seriously. Although Mela was still learning a thing or two from Hades and her cooking did improve, her standard was still nowhere near that of Hades. She could not help but feel a little upset that she could no longer get free meals that were this scrumptious anymore. Actually, my cooking skills are just mediocre. If you really want to try good food, you can go to the Mamie restaurant that has opened in Chaos City. Mr. Mag's cooking is the real deal, Mag said with a smile. Irina glanced at him. He's even praising himself? Is Mamie restaurant very famous? Vicky asked curiously. Extremely. It was said to be the best restaurant in the Norland continent, and the chef, Mr. Mag, is also the most charismatic man in the whole of the Norland continent. Mela replied. She glanced at Mag and said, of course, my master is still better. Mag nodded. He was enjoying this double praise. I guess I could try it out if I'm free. Vicky nodded. It's rather far away from Chaos City. I heard that it would take you a month to reach there, Mela said. It was such a pity that it was so far away. Otherwise, she would have gone over to try it. All right, everyone must be hungry. Let's eat, Mag said with a smile. No matter how thick-skinned he was, he could not stand so much praise. Mag gave Amy and Annie 2 pieces of chicken and started eating the grilled fish. Vicky only picked her chopsticks up after Mag. She picked up a piece of red braised beef that was in front of her. The beef was cut into cubes. The color was very alluring and the rich fragrance assailed her nostrils. Vicky, who had been eating army rations for days, let her guard down in an instant. She couldn't take it anymore. She put the large piece of red braised pork into her mouth, stuffing her cheeks. She could not be bothered about how she looked anymore. She bit into the red braised beef and the juice squirted out in her mouth. The exquisite texture made her taste buds dance for joy. Her soul had ascended. This feeling of satisfaction. How blissful! She chewed on the meat and swallowed it. This is too good. Vicky had tears in her eyes. Even though she was born into a wealthy family and had tried countless delicacies in the eyes of commoners, no food had ever given her such a sense of satisfaction. It was just a normal piece of beef that could be bought at a few copper coins a kilogram, but Hades had made it into a delicacy. After having the red braised beef, she finally knew that this was the taste of meat. Vicky looked at Mag differently. To her, he had changed from a wealthy middle-aged man into a good man with superb cooking skills. A man who can cook is a good man, right? If there was a man who would make such delicious red braised beef for her every day, she would be willing to marry him. After having 3 consecutive pieces of meat, Vicky ate a few mouthfuls of rice. She finally felt her hunger being satisfied a little. After that, she set her eyes on the roast chicken that had been cut up. The roast chicken was tender and its skin was slightly yellow. The oil on the skin was reflecting light and it appeared to be a little charred and crispy. However, the meat was still tender and juicy. She picked up a piece of chicken and ate it together with the skin. The skin was very fragrant. On top of that, it did not get stuck in her teeth. The meat was indeed tender and juicy. On top of that, the flavor had infused very well into the meat. This bite was a very different experience from the red braised beef. Vicky opened her legs slightly and could not help but moan. This was fantastic. It's so embarrassing. As a young mistress with a very good upbringing who had received a high-class education, she actually had such a reaction in front of other men. It's good, right? Eofi looked at her with a smile. Her reaction was not any worse than when she first tried Hades cooking. It seemed as though those delicacies had some sort of magical power. No matter how hard you try to control yourself, you would still be unable to when you try the food for the first time. Delicious. Vicky nodded. It was an undeniable truth. Mr. Hades' cooking is too shocking. It is praiseworthy. Vicky looked at Mag seriously and said, if you open a restaurant, you have to let me know. Sure. Mag nodded with a smile. After trying the roast chicken and grilled fish, Vicky felt that she was a woman who changes her mind easily because her preferences seemed to be changing instantly and the change happened only because she tried the next dish. Perhaps it was because the food was too good. The dining atmosphere was very harmonious and there was laughter and conversations, everyone became so much closer. Vicky, is your troupe preparing another opera other than Miss Black Cat? Irina asked curiously. Yes. We have around 5 other operas prepared. Vicky nodded. She shrugged helplessly. However, we recently lost some of our actors, so we only have enough people for Miss Black Cat. Did the fat maestro in the afternoon poach them? Mag interrupted. Actually, I am not too angry over this. After all, they were starving with me but they would at least have food with him. Vicky smiled and said with an open mind, humans are like that. You can't possibly make others starve for your dreams. Mag nodded. This was another reason he admired Vicky. Speaking of new scripts, I am recently intending to write a new script based on the war this time. Vicky's eyes seemed to shine when she talked about the opera. This war? What can you write about? The collection of peach trees and glutinous rice. Eofi asked with a tilt of her head. The scene of everyone chopping down their peach trees and piling them by the street was rather impactful. However, does that mean that we all will have no peaches to eat next year? Mela added in, feeling pity for the peaches. Mag and Irina smiled. To ordinary folks, the most impactful thing would be the collection of the peach trees and glutinous rice. Although it had been 2 days since the war ended, the soldiers at the front line might not have returned home yet. The details of the war were only spreading around specific class levels. However, the legend of Alex saving the world once again had begun spreading around the various tea houses and restaurants. The stories were all very exciting and even Mag could not help but exclaim in awe when hearing them. Vicky, as an art creator, probably heard related news and thought of writing a script on the war. No, no, no. The peach trees and glutinous rice collection were only part of the war and could only be considered a small part under the logistics team. The real excitement is the war that happened on the ice sheets. All of you might not be able to imagine the scene of hundreds and thousands of skeletons swarming over. The giant dragons dropped many explosives and tens of thousands of human archers shot raining arrows. That scene was more than just awe-inspiring. Of course, the most touching moment was when Alex slashed the skeleton dragon in one blow and lured the devil into the spell formation, and used a pre-arranged teleportation portal to escape, successfully sealing the devil to end the war. Alex was too cool. You can't find another man like that in the world. Vicky was very agitated when she spoke, and in the end, she even looked like a little fangirl. How does this lass know so clearly about what happened on the front line? Mag raised his eyebrow and looked at Vicky in surprise. The details were accurate, and there were parts that even most of the front-line soldiers didn't know of. This was also why the rumors in the tea houses had spread so rapidly. Have you fallen for him? Irina asked Vicky with a seemingly gentle smile. It's hard not to fall for him. Vicky nodded. Mag glanced at Irina carefully and felt danger looming. Vicky quickly said, "Of course, it's impossible for me though. Princess Irina is also super beautiful. She's comparable to you, big sister. I'm afraid only a beautiful and powerful woman like her is a match for Alex." Mag heaved a sigh of relief for this lass. Really? Irina smiled and retracted the knife that she had already pulled out halfway. Of course. She was the only one who could be comparable to herself in terms of looks. Maestro, how did you know so much? You weren't around 2 days ago. Did you go to the front line? Mela asked curiously. Vicky froze. She felt that she had been a little too rash and said too much of what she should not have said. Now, it would be difficult to pull the wool over their eyes. Mag and Irina exchanged glances. Ah, how is that possible? I can't even lift up a sword, much less be at the front line to be a human sacrifice. Vicky laughed awkwardly and said, I went to visit my relatives 2 days ago and happened to run into one of them who returned from the front line. I heard my stories from him. She's lying. Mag and Irina could both tell. A person's small actions and expressions could reveal a lot. If one would calculate based on the timeline, it was indeed possible for Vicky to appear at the front line on the ice sheets, only, the identity in which she appeared was unknown. She was the young mistress from a wealthy family. Why would she have to go to the front line? This was not a joke, and even a 10th-tier powerhouse could die. So you are intending to write a script related to Alex? Mag asked with a smile and did not expose Vicky's lies. I was just thinking about it. After all, it's very difficult to find someone who could act like him. On top of that, the scene is too grand. You have no idea how scary the devil was. It's really very difficult to represent it on stage. Vicky shook her head. In that case, if someone got you to write a script, would you do it? Irina asked. No one has done that so far. After all, there are only 2 opera troupes in Rodo currently. Of course, if it was an interesting concept and story, I might just give it a try, Vicky said with a smile. Irina nodded slightly and had a rough idea. After dinner, Eofi and Vicky made their way back. Titan Tavern and Black Cat Opera House had to open at night too. Meanwhile, in a corner at the last row, a few inconspicuous audience members looked at this scene with tears in their eyes. Maestro's dreams have finally come true. It's great, said a young man smilingly. A middle-aged man sighed and lamented, yes. Unfortunately, it has nothing to do with us. If we had held on for a little longer, we would be on the stage with them. Let's go. It's time to go back. The few of them lowered their heads and followed the crowd out to the door, looking a little desolate. They had gone through the toughest time together, but they chose to be deserters just as dawn was coming. However, it still made them emotional and tearful when they saw their former companions act out the opera that they had practiced so hard for on stage. Since you are here, do you still want to leave silently? They had reached the door and were about to leave when a voice spoke up from in front of them. All of them looked up and saw Vicky at the door. Maestro, all of them called out instinctively. Then, all of them lowered their heads in shame, unable to meet Vicky's eyes. What do you think about today's show? Vicky asked smilingly. This is the best show I have seen. Your performance is mesmerizing, Fora looked up and said seriously. The few of them also nodded. Today's opera performance made them feel excited. Perhaps, it was the enhancement of the costumes that made them feel that everyone had done excellently today and created an exciting opera. Bayo lowered his head and gently said, "I'm sorry, Maestro. We didn't even say goodbye when we left." The others also looked self-reproachful and avoided Vicky's eyes. They were all rescued by Vicky from dire situations and they had all been working towards the same dream, helping and encouraging one another. However, the few of them became deserters. I have never blamed you guys for that. I don't know how I would have let you guys go if you'd come to say goodbye to me. Vicky looked at all of them with a smile. At least, you guys have food to eat when you're there. You would only have starved hopelessly if you stayed on. All of them looked increasingly ashamed. However, everything is different now. We have our own opera house, new costumes, and an audience who appreciates our performance. Moreover, we have food every day and we have meat for every meal. Vicky stepped forward and said to all of them seriously, "Come back. We need you and Black Cat Opera needs you. Maestro." All of them looked up and stared at Vicky in disbelief. They had imagined being scolded or sneered at by Vicky. At the very least, she wouldn't want to see them. They had never imagined that Maestro would ask them to come back. "Yes. 4, Bayo and Little 7, come back. It's very tiring for us to act in so many roles. Moreover, only you guys play your roles best." Ibeka appeared next to Vicky. The other actors who were still wearing their costumes, walked out from the side door. They came over to Vicky and said to Bayo and the rest, "Come back, we need you guys." Everyone. Bayo and the rest finally couldn't help but cry. The audience who was about to leave, halted their footsteps when they saw this scene. Some even spoke up for them. Bayo wiped away his tears and said, shaking his head, "Maestro, even though we would like to come back very much, I'm afraid we can't." 4 and the rest also revealed a desolate look in their eyes. "Why?" Vicky looked at Bayo and frowned, "Did Pascal force you guys to sign something?" After a moment of deliberation, Bayo said with guilt, "Pascal made us all sign a contract when we joined Maca Opera. We have to stay in Maca Opera for 3 years. If we try to leave, we'll have to pay 50,000 copper coins of liquidated damages for breach of contract. 50,000 copper coins." All of them in the opera troupe sucked in a cold breath. To the opera troupe which was just beginning to get on its feet, this was, without a doubt, a huge sum. Even though there were many people who came tonight, they only collected 3,000 to 4,000 copper coins. After deducting their expenses, they wouldn't have too much money left. There were 8 of them, including Bayo, so 50,000 copper coins for each of them would be 400,000 copper coins in total. Obviously, this wasn't something that the Black Cat Opera could afford now. Vicky waved her hand and said with conviction, "You guys go back first and I'll personally go to Maca Opera to bring you all back tomorrow. You don't have to worry about money." "But Maestro..." Bayo panicked a little. "Since you called me Maestro, follow my instructions. Don't hem and haw." Vicky frowned and her presence immediately increased. Bayo only felt a chill down his neck. He instinctively shivered and kept quiet. Vicky stepped to the side and said, "All right, let's stop blocking the door." All of them also quickly stepped to the side to let the audience go out. Bayo and the rest returned first and the audience left too. "Maestro, do we really have the money?" Ibeka asked Vicky. He was already holding the money bag in his hands. "I still have the wage that you gave us yesterday. Why don't you take it first?" "Me too. I only ate a bowl of noodles with it and the rest is still here. I bought a piece of clothing, but it was only 30 copper coins. The rest is here." All of them took out their money and came forward. Vicky looked at the tattered money bags in their hands and smiled. She pushed Ibeka's hands back and said to all of them, "Money is not an issue. I can resolve it. These are your wages, put them away. I'll go get them back tomorrow." All of them looked at Vicky. After some hesitation, they put away the money. Maestro never lied to them. This was their consensus. Since she said it was fine, then it was definitely fine. I'll go buy some quilts for them tomorrow. Little Seven is afraid of the cold. I'll get Little Seven a pretty dress. The little maiden loves to dress up. She has even talked about it in her dreams a few times. Four's clothes are already tattered. I'll go buy a big coat for him tomorrow. We'll be able to perform other operas if everyone is back. The audience will definitely like it if we rotate the shows. Everyone chimed in as they started to fantasize about their future. Vicky had a smile. She was suddenly very grateful to Mr. Hades for giving her a choice today. It gave her the ability to bring her troupe members back. Garland wasn't sending him a gift to butter him up. After all, Garland knew that such prim and proper picture books were not what he liked. Hector, who had shelves full of colored picture books at home, wasn't shocked over how beautifully drawn the tale of the Little Mermaid was. Instead, he was shocked that these two picture books were identical. This was a colored picture book. According to Garland, there were 1,000 identical copies in Chaos City. They were being sold at Mamie Restaurant at 1,000 copper coins per copy. What did this mean? Usually, people would think about how to buy a few more copies and then sell them for more at another place, earning from the price difference. With Hector's professional insight, this picture book could be sold for 50,000 to 80,000 copper coins in Rodeu's colored picture books market. The drawing style was exquisite and the story was interesting. Many rich young mistresses would like it. They could buy it at 1,000 copper coins and sell it for 100,000 copper coins before the news spread to Rodeu. Garland was asking him to help him sell it. But of course, it was far more than that. 1,000 identical colored picture books meant that someone had already solved the problem of color printing in Chaos City. This was, without a doubt, a subversive news to the paper media. Imagine it, if colored pictures could be inserted into perfect food, what kind of impact would it create in the gourmet magazine's market? If this cost could be lowered, the price could be controlled, then he couldn't imagine the growth of Perfect Food magazine. Hector's breathing slowly became labored when he thought of this. However, Garland had sent back bad news at the same time. Mag declined to work with Perfect Food exclusively. Instead, he signed a contract with 10 gourmet magazines at the same time. This meant Perfect Food had lost its advantage of exclusivity and the previous miracle of the 1 million issues wouldn't be repeated either. However, if they could get the secret of wealth of color printing without other gourmet magazines knowing, he could already foresee the numerous changes the industry was going to face. Countless opportunities were hidden there. Just printing some of his prized picture books after censoring some of the inappropriate pictures would be enough to shock the picture books industry and earn him buckets of gold. The good news was these picture books came from Mr. Mag and they were drawn by his daughter. The not so good news was Mr. Mag was obviously not a man who could be easily fooled. Selling 1,000 copies of picture books every day at 1,000 copper coins each allowed him to earn 1 million copper coins easily. Hector wasn't sure that he could make such a man share his secret of wealth. Hector walked to his office's door and said to his secretary, "Help me book a travel ticket to Chaos City tomorrow. I want the fastest flying steed." "Yes, boss." "Interesting. How did Mr. Mag do it?" "He actually solved a problem that couldn't be resolved for years and he did it so beautifully." "Is it magic?" "It doesn't seem like it." In the Buffett manner, Sheer was reading a picture book on the sofa with her legs propped up comfortably. She was marveling at it. It was her rare rest time and the picture book was gifted to her by her servant. It came from Mamie Restaurant and Annie. The story was interesting and the drawing style was very intricate too. The comfortable color and drawing style gave her an enjoyable 30 minutes. However, what interested her the most was the picture book itself. It was a colored picture book and a mass-produced colored picture book at that too. Such a thing had never appeared on the market before. The reason was very simple. No one was able to print colored prints up until now. Some had tried before, but what they created was rough and the colors were limited. Hence, the combination was unusually ugly and it wasn't even as good as black and white, which provided some room for imagination. Someone had said before, if anyone could resolve the issue of color printing, they would grasp the secret of wealth of the paper media. Now, this person has appeared. Sheer caressed the picture book with upturned lips. Mr. Mag had indeed never disappointed her before. From the steam train to the color printing now, it was easier for her to accept the latter because of the former. The Buffett family didn't have many businesses in the paper media industry, but everyone knew the importance of a widespread media platform. It was the same to the Buffett family. She had sensed that this industry was going to be subverted and a new player was going to emerge soon. Perhaps, she could have a chance to plan in advance this time. I wonder if Mr. Mag will decide to do it himself this time, or sell away the technology like before. Sheer murmured before she turned to say towards the door, by tomorrow morning, I want to see the information on the best people in the media on the Norland continent. Yes, young mistress, the secretary respectfully answered from the outside. Quick! Send this book to Rodu and get Old Fang to print 10,000 copies. In a living room at the north of Chaos City, a middle-aged man passed a picture book that was wrapped up in layers of cloth to a young man. Father, this isn't very nice, right? The young man said with a frown. The middle-aged man leaped up and knocked him on his head. He said as though he had expected better from him, what do you know, kid? We do this for a living. What's not nice about it? Others will print it even if we don't. There's no point for us to print it if it is available everywhere. The young man covered his head and aggrievedly said, but, we're printing 10,000 copies right away. What if we can't sell it? These aren't restricted books that they cannot buy on the market. The middle-aged man rolled his eyes and said, what do you know? It contains instructions on how to cook red braised pork, personally drawn by Mamie Restaurant's boss daughter. Do you know how many copies of the previous perfect food were sold because of Boss Mag's eggplant with garlic sauce's recipe? 1 million copies. You fool! Don't even say 10,000 copies, I may have to print even more copies. But you're a... Go now. The middle-aged man gave him a kick. The young man went out quietly. Mag had no idea that the tale of the Little Mermaid had attracted so many people's attention. He had already begun to plan how to promote the sales of Miss Black Cat. This time, he intended to release it in Rodu first and fixed the price at 2,000 copper coins per copy. The price was double that of the Little Mermaid S, but it had more than twice the pages and Annie's drawing was far better in Miss Black Cat than in the Little Mermaid after practicing for a period of time. Furthermore, his target audience were those rich and free people who appreciated the arts. They were the opera house's target customers. Fortunately, Master eventually chose Miss. She didn't know how to be a boss. I'll be even busier in the future. The relaxing life is over. Eofi sighed. He's relaxed now. He could sleep in his warm bed till late with his wife and children. Mela rubbed her hands together and said, it's fine, miss. I will work hard to help you. Of course. From tomorrow on, you will practice making 100 helpings of pig ears salad daily and will sell them in Titan Tavern. Ah! Mela was taken aback. Didn't Master say we shouldn't sell imperfect pig ears salad? This is relative. At Saipan Tavern, only perfect pig ears salad can be served to the customers. Eofi shook her head with a smile. But at Titan Tavern, even the not-so-perfect pig ears salad could crush the side dishes that we are supplying now. In this case, it's perfect. I see, but... Mela was thoughtful. Eofi rolled her eyes and said, your master asked you to practice making 1,000 helpings before you can perfect your skills. Do you know how many pigs have to give up their lives for 1,000 helpings of pig ears salad? Are you going to eat 1,000 pig ears salad by yourself if you are not selling them? We're selling them. Mela said right away. She didn't want to eat 1,000 helpings of pig ears salad. Just thinking about that terrified her. However, she still curiously asked, Miss, how many pigs have to give up their lives then? Stupid, of course it's 1,000 of them. Mamie restaurant closed for one day after opening for one day, making the customers feel frustrated. However, the good thing was it was the restaurant's regular off day. Hence, long lines began to form outside of the restaurant early the next morning. Most of them came for breakfast, while some came for the Little Mermaid picture book. Mag woke up early and he was about to hang a small blackboard on the door, when he met a pair of aggrieved eyes in the dark as he opened the door. That's early. Mag was surprised. He placed the little blackboard on the door and took one step back into the warm heater range before he smilingly said, Are you cold? Harrison, who was standing at the very front of the door, replied with chattering teeth, Why yes. It's fine. Just bear with it and it will be over soon. The restaurant will seem really warm in comparison. Mag smiled before closing the door. All the customers. Soon after, the restaurant's door reopened and Mag came out with a huge vat and 2 rows of disposable cups. He smilingly said to Harrison, Come, the task to distribute the ginger soup is yours now. Warm up before you guys have your meals. This is the first time Boss Mag is distributing warmth. Harrison looked shocked. The other customers were also curious about what was in the steaming vat. Mag handed the big ladle to Harrison and patted him on the shoulders, Thank you very much. I promise I'll complete the task, Harrison replied smilingly. Mag closed the door and returned to the restaurant. Harrison yelled at 2 young men and got them to come over to help him distribute a small cup of piping hot red ginger soup to the crowd. The steaming ginger soup in the paper cup was warm in their hands and made their frozen hands regain some sensation. It smells so nice. Is it sweet? A maiden held the cup with both her hands and sniffed at it curiously. Maybe Boss Mag has added some sugar in it, the little maiden's father replied smilingly before he blew at it gently and took a sip. The ginger soup was sweet and spicy, but it didn't feel too fiery within the mouth. Instead, it was warm and soothing. It swirled in their mouth before going down their throats and into their stomachs. The warm sensation stretched from the throat all the way to the stomach. Then, as though a small fireball was glowing in their stomachs, their bodies felt warm all over. Delicious! The man's eyes lit up before he took 2 more sips. The small cup of ginger soup was soon finished by the man. Fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead and nose. He felt his entire body warm up, from his head to his toes and inside out. The coldness from the early spring was dispelled and he felt very comfortable throughout. Gulp-gulp sounds of slurping sounded and everyone's experience was similar. Their whole person warmed up after drinking the ginger soup and the cold was no longer unbearable. It's so hot. It feels so similar to sitting in the restaurant after drinking this. It's indeed Boss Mag. He even made the ginger soup so delicious. I suddenly feel rather touched. Boss Mag is indeed a good boss. Everyone was chatting and they were amazed at the ginger soup. The little maiden finished the ginger soup in small sips. She looked up at the man and asked, It's so delicious. Can I have another cup? The man looked at Harrison, who was holding onto the ladle, with hesitation. After pouring over hundreds of cups of ginger soup, Harrison was exhausted. He scooped the final bit of ginger soup in the vat and was about to taste it when he heard the little maiden. He looked at the cup in his hands and at the little maiden. Then, he handed the untouched cup over smilingly. Come, little one. You can have this too. The little maiden didn't accept it. Instead she asked Harrison, Uncle, won't you have nothing then? It's fine. Uncle has already smelled it earlier and I feel very warm now. Harrison chuckled. The little maiden looked at her father inquiringly. Drink it yourself, sir. You have been distributing the drinks for such a long time. She just had it. It's enough, the man quickly replied as he patted the little maiden's head smilingly. It's right for the little ones to have more, so they won't get sick. Harrison pushed the cup to the little maiden before returning to his position. Thank you, uncle, the little maiden said with a sweet smile. You're welcome. Harrison waved his hand. The cold early spring morning was warmed up by a small cup of ginger soup. Meanwhile, the chowhound's hearts raced because of the little blackboard on the door. Today's new products: cooked wheaten food, Sichuan spicy wontons in red oil, hot. New dish, Sichuan spicy chicken. After releasing the shaved noodles and soup dumplings 2 days ago, Boss Mag continued to release 2 new dishes today. Harrison couldn't help but marvel, good fellow. Boss Mag is so productive. This is a victory for all the people who like strongly flavored food. From today on, we can finally eat things with a strong flavor in the morning. Some were ecstatic to see the Sichuan spicy wontons in red oil. Mag's preference for breakfast had to do with his mood. Sometimes, he preferred something light, while at other times, he preferred something heavy. It was naturally best to have a choice. Mia, who came early today, said to Mag with adoration as soon as she came in, "There are 2 new dishes today again. Boss, you are awesome." As a completely untalented woman in cooking, Yabimiya admired Mag for his ability to create delicious new dishes constantly. His brain seemed to hold many delicacies and he could always create amazingly good food easily. I have to give something new for the expectant customers, right? Mag said as he made the wontons. After looking at Mag for a while from the side, Yabimiya asked enthusiastically, "This doesn't look too difficult. Do you need my help?" Mag flicked a glance at her and nodded. "You can try if you want to." "Sure." Yabimiya washed her hands and wiped them dry. She pinched a little bit of dough like Mag and rolled it with a roller pin. A big piece of thin dough laid on the chopping block quietly. Yabimiya scraped for a while before she managed to scrape the broken piece of dough skin off from the chopping block with an embarrassed expression. She didn't expect the simple pressing task to stump her. "Just use the wonton skin that I rolled out," Mag smilingly said and used his gaze to direct her to the thin wonton skins that he had stacked up at the side. The wonton skin of appropriate thickness was tough, and yet she was able to see through when holding it against the light. Yabimiya scooped a spoonful of meat filling and put it in the skin's center like Mag. After pondering for a moment, she folded it into half and pressed the sides in. Looking at the wonton in her hand, Yabimiya nodded with satisfaction. It didn't seem as difficult as she had imagined. Mag looked at the wonton in her hands and calmly said, "Your wonton will open up even before we put it in the water." "Really?" Yabimiya was stunned. She looked at her wonton and then at Mag's wonton. She didn't think that they looked very different. "Do it this way. Pinch this side together first and fold it in as you go along the side, pressing the fold in one after one. It looks nicer and the filling won't get out during boiling, which would affect the taste and appearance." Mag demonstrated as he taught. "I got it." Yabimiya nodded, seemingly to have understood. She followed Mag's example and ended up squeezing half of the meat fillings out. "That's ruined." Mag smiled, but he encouraged her. "You'll get it after a few more tries." Soon after, Firas came too and joined in on the operation of wrapping the wontons. Firas was much more talented than Yabimiya. She got the hang of it after learning it for a short while. This made Yabimiya sigh hard. Mag finished wrapping his wontons and then helped to quickly repair the ones Yabimiya and Firas made. Their breakfast that morning would be those less than perfect wontons. Firas and Yabimiya, who made the wontons, specifically asked to have Sichuan spicy wontons in red oil for breakfast, while Shirley and the rest chose to have lighter breakfast. The shaved noodles and soup dumplings had become their new favorite breakfast. Mag cooked 4 bowls of Sichuan spicy wontons in red oil. Amy asked for a bowl when she woke up and saw the freshly wrapped wontons, and Mag himself wanted something spicy to wake himself up in the morning. The wontons were floating in the red soup base with sesame seeds and tender green spring onions scattered all over them. The hot steam rose up along with the chicken soup's aroma and the spiciness of the red oil, making one feel refreshed. Gulp. It smells so nice. Anna gulped. She felt that her shaved noodles were no longer enticing. All of them couldn't help taking a few more looks at it. Although it was a tad too heavy to eat spicy and greasy food in the morning, they still couldn't help wanting to try it out after smelling it. I made this. Indeed, it has signs of opening up. Yabimiya looked at the bowl of Sichuan spicy wontons in red oil in front of her and picked out a crooked wonton. Its side was slightly open, but fortunately the filling was intact. After blowing at it, she took a bite. The soft and tender wonton skin was thin and smooth. The meat filling was juicy and the spiciness and sweetness of the meat merged together, making her taste buds go crazy. She simply had to chew it softly and it could be swallowed easily. The spiciness only just blossomed in the oral cavity now. It slid down the throat and all the way into the stomach. This sensation was simply too marvelous. After swallowing one wonton, Yabimiya marveled. It's so scrumptious. Firas nodded and said with tears in her eyes, It's simply fantastic. Although it is a little spicy, it's really smooth and tender. As an elf, who almost didn't eat spicy food and only ate hot pot with clear broth, this spiciness was a little bit too much for her. However, this didn't affect her love for the wontons at all. Different from the soup dumplings, which one had to drink the soup first before eating the dumpling, the red soup base made the wontons taste wilder. Apart from the spicy red oil, the red soup base was chicken soup and this tasty chicken soup elevated the taste. You have to drink the soup like this. Amy used a spoon to gently brush the red oil on the surface aside before drinking a spoonful of the soup. All of them only felt a tightness in their throats as they secretly guessed what kind of spiciness that would feel like. However, Amy looked like she was enjoying herself tremendously. She only started to eat the wontons after drinking a few mouthfuls of soup. Soon, tiny beads of sweat appeared on her little nose and she looked like she enjoyed her meal very much. Mag had also started eating. The taste was not bad, but the wontons didn't look too good. After all, they were made by Firas and Yabimiya, so they weren't perfectly done. However, they were eating them, so it didn't matter too much. It wasn't good to waste food and ingredients. The customers would eat the ones that he wrapped, so the taste would definitely pass. As for the Sichuan spicy chicken, it would be released at noon. It would be a great dish to eat with rice or have with an alcoholic beverage. Mag hadn't let them try it before, so he was also looking forward to their reactions. It wasn't time for the breakfast service yet, and the two elven maidens had just arrived with the Little Mermaid picture books that they were going to sell today. As the side business of Mamie Restaurant, selling picture books was indeed a good business. They were easily earning 1 million a day, which was hard to do elsewhere. So, Mamie Restaurant's breakfast hour is also so boisterous. Mr. Mag indeed has an irresistible charm. Sheer looked at the long line in front of her and curved her lips upwards. She didn't know why, but she was getting increasingly curious about Mag, be it his extraordinary culinary skills, amazing inventions, or unique ability to dabble in different industries. He could cook, work and make clothes, trains, and cannons. However, such a man was happy to spend most of his time in the kitchen, just content to serve his customers with the scrumptious food. Sheer had never met a man like him before, and a man like him had never appeared in the Norland continent's historical records before either. The more she came in contact with him, the more she found him unfathomable, as though he was hiding a huge secret. However, she got even more curious because of that, and she wanted to find out about it. There had never been a man who could give her such a sensation before. This was rather special to Sheer, who had spent all her time and effort on the business in her past 18 years. Of course, she didn't think she would fall for a man easily. However, if that man was Mag, she was willing to observe her inner feelings more closely. After all, be it the steam engine, or the colored printer, that most probably come from him, they were all creations that could change the world. Such an outstanding man, and one who could even cook so well, could make any woman fall for him. The restaurant started its operation and the two young elves at the door began to sell the Little Mermaid picture books too. The exquisite picture books were loved by everyone and many came specially to buy the picture book. However, according to the rules, the customers who were lining up to go eat at the restaurant, had the priority to buy the picture books first and they were limited to 2 per customer. This helped to prevent the action of scalpering to a certain extent. Sheer walked to the restaurant's door and looked at the life-sized stand-up of Annie. She pondered briefly before taking out the money to buy one picture book. She already had one at home, so she bought this one to show her support. It was her thoughts that counted. The new product on the little blackboard had attracted her attention. Sichuan spicy wontons in red oil sounded rather festive. However, many dishes in Mamie restaurant were a new product to her. She had a lot of matters to deal with daily, so she didn't have the time to line up for hours just to eat a meal. A maiden behind Sheer beat her tired legs as she murmured, "If only I can become the lady boss of Mamie restaurant. Not only will I not need to line up, I can even get to eat the tofu pudding that has a beautifying effect daily. I can just lie down and collect money. Moreover, Boss Mag is so handsome." Sheer turned her head and used her smart brain to seriously consider it. It sounds like a good investment. Perhaps, this maiden had no idea, but Boss Mag had more than this restaurant. He still had half of the equity to the steam engine and 10% equity of all the future railroads. It would be a terrifying amount of wealth. Apart from that, he could even usher in a brand new color printing age for the paper media and subvert a very imaginative industry. Judging from this area, the ladies in Chaos City indeed had good taste. After all, the perfect husband candidate in the hearts of so many maidens wasn't just a chef or the boss of a restaurant. He was, in fact, a secret business tycoon. Sheer and her secretary sat at a corner seat. It was about 8:40 a.m. and the breakfast service was almost over. Most of the workers had gone to work, so there were quite a few empty seats in the restaurant. "Hello, what would you like to order?" Yabimiya came to the table. Even though she had been busy for the whole morning, there was still an energetic smile on her face. Sheer looked at Yabimiya and smilingly said, "I would like to have a helping of Sichuan spicy wontons in red oil." "This is a spicy dish," Mia reminded her. They had had a meal together before, so she didn't feel so distant from her. "It's fine. It's cold out there, so it's perfect to eat something spicy. It wouldn't be as spicy as the hot pot, right?" "It's not. After all, the hot pot isn't suitable to be eaten as breakfast." Yabimiya shook her head with a smile. She took the secretary's order of soup dumplings before walking to the kitchen. Her golden ponytail was swinging behind her head. Sheer surveyed the restaurant once again. Amy should be in school now. Only that fat and rotund orange cat was crouching on the bar counter with one of its paws hanging down. Its eyes were narrowed lazily. Babla sat on the bar stool behind the counter. She pointed her fingers around in the restaurant every now and then and a helping of breakfast would fly out of the kitchen and land in front of the customer steadily. Sheer had a deep impression of this princess from the Moon Nation. Sheer was surprised that she was still working at Mamie restaurant as a server with her identity, and after the teleportation portal successfully linked between the Moon Nation and Mamie restaurant, she still helped to build the seal spell formation to seal the devil twice. There was also Gina, that gentle mermaid and the Lantistine princess who could stop children crying in a second. She also continued to stay in Mamie restaurant. Sheer turned her gaze to Mag, who was busy in the kitchen. It was hard to ignore that strapping figure and sharp side profile. What are they really after? Are they really after his dishes? Sheer pondered with a frown. As a business person, she always calculated the benefits and interests very carefully. Hence, after she thought about it seriously for a long time, she reached a conclusion: they were after his body. "Excuse me, your Sichuan spicy wontons in red oil." A voice spoke up next to her ears and a helping of Sichuan spicy wontons in red oil landed in front of her steadily. The red soup didn't even tremble. Sheer retracted her thoughts and smiled at Bablat, who was also smiling at her from behind the counter, before looking at the wontons in front of her. The red soup and white wontons had fresh chopped green onions and sesame seeds scattered all over them. The aroma of the chicken soup already greeted her nose. Sheer's stomach growled when she smelled the aroma, as she had woken up early and lined up for more than 2 hours. Although the red oil made her throat feel tight, it didn't look too greasy. She picked up the spoon and used the chopsticks to place one wonton in it. The delicately wrapped wonton looked exquisite and adorable. Beads of perspiration had already formed on the tip of Sheer's nose by the time she swallowed the wonton. Super good! Sheer looked at the wontons in front of her and her eyes sparkled. Due to her busy work, she was actually not very particular about food and would often forget to eat. She would also only eat breakfast depending on her mood. However, this breakfast, which appeared rather too heavy for her, had captured her heart instantly. This beautiful feeling made her feel bright today. She could even understand why those people queued for so long. Although the long queue would take up a lot of one's physical and mental strength, upon tasting a delicious and hot breakfast, the tiredness would be soothed away instantly by the sense of satisfaction, and one would even get a stronger sense of motivation and energy. This was probably the magic of food. How could a small wonton be enough? One after another, Sheer put the wontons in her mouth and would occasionally scoop up the red oil with her spoon and mix it with another scoop of chicken soup to drink. In no time at all, a bowl of wontons was finished. If it was not that the red soup base was really too spicy and oily for her, she would probably have finished the soup too. Whew! Sheer let out a gentle sigh and smiled with satisfaction. The food was delicious and she felt good after eating. She had not experienced a breakfast like this in a very long time. Sheer took out a handkerchief and wiped away the perspiration on her forehead and nose as her gaze landed on Mag, who was packing away the kitchenware in the kitchen. If she wanted to have such a breakfast every day, she would have to wake up at 6 in the morning and after a brief wash-up, take a 20-minute horse-drawn carriage ride to Mamie Restaurant and queue for 2 hours to enter the restaurant. After ordering the Sichuan spicy wontons in red oil, she would then have to spend another 20 minutes eating before going to the bank. This meant that for this breakfast, she would have to take close to 3 hours out of her day. Besides, according to this calculation, she would not be able to have the tofu pudding. Although she was very confident in her looks, being at the age where her skin and body condition were at their best, no woman would reject eating a serving of tofu pudding every morning to cast away all frets about skin issues. This was just breakfast. If she wanted to have lunch and dinner here, the time used to queue and dine would increase. Boss Mag was a man of principles. He would never make an exception for anyone. Money could solve many problems but not when it came to paying off Boss Mag because he was equally rich. Other than the employees of Mamie Restaurant, everyone, even Michael the city lord, had to queue to eat. It would be impossible for Sheer to become a waitress, as she still had her own ambitions and dreams. Therefore, if she wanted to enjoy a delicious breakfast every morning upon waking up without queuing and waiting, it seemed the only way would be to become the lady boss of Mamie Restaurant. This way, it seems super worth it. No wonder so many ladies want to be the lady boss. Sheer looked at Mag with a burning gaze as she started calculating the return of interest if this happened. Mag, who had just removed his apron and hung it to the side, felt a burning gaze on him. He looked over and met eyes with Sheer. Wow, our mighty banker is here for breakfast. Mag was surprised. Sheer was a little embarrassed. Her face flushed red for a brief moment and she quickly put on a professional banker's smile. Mag took the thermos flask on the counter and drank a sip of water with goji berries. He put the cap back on and looked at Sheer as he said, "Miss Sheer, why do you have the time for breakfast here today?" "That's because the best breakfast in Chaos City is here. Do I have a choice?" Sheer smiled. It does make sense. Mag smiled. He did not think that Sheer would spend a few hours waiting just to have breakfast. Other than breakfast, I am actually here to have a chat with you over something. Sheer did not beat about the bush. Morning operations in the restaurant were ending soon and most of the customers had already left. Let's have a cup of tea later on. Mag nodded. Sheer was a very excellent business partner after all. She was also handling the most amount of money in the Norland continent. She was the real wealthy lady. No one could go wrong with making her a little happier. All right. Sheer nodded and motioned for her secretary to foot the bill. The restaurant closed exactly at 9. After cleaning up, Mia and the rest left quickly. Mag made a pot of chrysanthemum tea and sat with Sheer at the table by the window. Sheer took off her down jacket and she was wearing a black long knitted dress underneath. It was very fitting, which showed off her perfect figure. Beside her on the table was a copy of The Tale of the Little Mermaid that she bought in the morning. Thank you. Sheer received the cup of tea Mag poured for her and took a whiff of the fragrant chrysanthemum tea. After that, she put the cup down with a smile. I heard that the railway to Vic Mountain has gone into frequent operation, is that right? Mag asked while pouring himself a cup of tea. Yes. As there was a need to transport minerals and other emergency goods from Vic Mountain to Chaos City previously, the railway was working almost at maximum capacity, which exposed several issues. At the same time, several issues were solved and now we can operate frequently. The demand for transport is not bad as well. Sheer nodded. We are currently preparing to make the railroad from Chaos City to the dwarves' place. Once it's set, trade for these 3 areas would be able to improve. This route is not bad at all. Mag nodded. Many minerals were produced on Vic Mountain and the goblins were not good at forging. With the railroad's large-scale transportation, the minerals from Vic Mountain could be transported to the dwarves to be processed and forged. After that, the product could be transported to Chaos City to be sold. This would form a complete cycle. The most important thing was that these 2 races weren't strong on their own and they were not ambitious as well. This made them very good partners. Once their economies get tied together, communication would become more convenient. This would make the goblins and dwarves more valuable in Chaos City. This was something that Mag thought of back then. Only, he did not expect Sheer and the city lord's castle to use this war to expedite this matter. Now that the railroad had started expanding in the Norland continent, the steam train's convenience and economic viability would make the other races join in. By then, the entire continent's communication would quickly improve, together with the convenience that transport brought along. But I'm not here to talk about the railroad today. I want to talk to you about this picture book. Sheer picked up the Little Mermaid picture book beside her and looked at Mag with a smile. She still liked to talk in this manner. Are you interested in it? Mag looked at Sheer. Yes. It's just like the steam engine, so it's hard not to be interested in it. Sheer nodded with conviction. After all, it's a big thing that can subvert an industry, and it's always important to have the power of control. Mag smiled as he looked at Sheer with an admirable gaze. A mere picture book. People who were slightly smart would buy it and sell it to make a small sum. People in the industry might be able to feel the opportunity, while Sheer saw the chance to fight for control. She really came from an old capitalist family. The appearance of the colored printing press was, without a doubt, tantamount to a dimensionality reduction blow to the paper media on the Norland continent. Using a simple example, whoever was able to release a fully colored magazine now, be it the geographical magazine that introduced the customs and scenery, or the Playboy magazine that had the succubus on its cover, or just a simple gourmet magazine, they could easily take over a huge market share. Furthermore, the other magazine presses had no way to retaliate at all. Color was that amazing, and that was also why the people on Earth pursued resolution relentlessly. The profitability of the magazine wasn't important. As long as it had a certain amount of sales, it could become a channel with a huge influence. Be it instilling ads, or propagandizing some kind of ideology, it would be a very powerful platform. Most of the resources were scattered right now, but with the appearance of color printing and its monopoly for a period of time, this situation would most likely be changed. Unfortunately, MAG only had one nuclear-powered printer. Although its printing speed should be able to catch up with Shear's ambition, it was difficult for him to explain how this sophisticated machine was created. He had provided a blueprint for the steam engine, before Shear used her superpower of money to create a powerful team and overcome all the problems to create it. However, this was nuclear-powered. Even when he had a brain that came from Earth, it totally wasn't enough. As for color printing, he had to organize the knowledge in his brain and come out with one printing machine that wasn't so extravagant and yet still served its purpose. Shear said to Mag with a serious expression, "I wonder if I have the honor to work with Mr. Mag again. I guess with our past familiar collaboration, we should be able to do this very well." Mag shook his head and replied, "Actually, up till now, this is still an immature idea. Its output is only 1,000 picture books per day." Shear said thoughtfully, "Do you intend to do it alone?" "Currently, yes." Mag nodded before calmly saying, "You know very well that I'm not very ambitious. In the very beginning, I just wanted to let my child's work have color and allow more people to enjoy it." The system dissed him. "Freeloader. Shameless. Twee." Shear was stunned and she stared at Mag with disbelief and an open mouth. She had never expected that the problem that had stumped the world for years was resolved because he wanted to let his child's works have color when they were sold. He's really a good man. Shear couldn't help thinking about that inwardly. Mag's image became even more noble in her heart. He could cook, was smart and considerate to his family. He was indeed a good man and a good father. Oh yes. Apart from being the lady boss, being his daughter was not bad either. Just that you've got to call him daddy. Shear blushed as she chased all the weird thoughts in her mind away. She said to Mag, "Since that's the case, I'll wait till this technology is widely used before we talk about collaboration again. I hope to be the first person you remember then. I'm willing to supply every requirement for Mr. Mag." "Sure." Mag nodded. In terms of financial power, no one could compare to Shear indeed. Furthermore, as a business person, working with Shear made one feel more relieved than working with some power or race. As long as the sharing of interests was reasonable, the collaboration would be very stable and he didn't have to worry about the other terms. Shear took a sip of the tea and the faint refreshing and warm chrysanthem's fragrance lingered in her mouth. Putting down the teacup, Shear flicked her hair and pretended to casually say, "Mr. Mag has never talked about the lady boss." Shear blushed after saying that and she glanced at Mag with the corner of her eyes. Her heart began to race. How could she have said that? Mag was slightly taken aback as he looked at Shear with a weird expression. Speaking of which, they were not that close to each other that it allowed them to talk about private matters, right? Furthermore, why did she suddenly ask about the lady boss? Why was she blushing? Perhaps she wanted to get my printing machine for free. About the lady boss, I don't have to worry either. I heard the ladies have formed a line and it has reached the city gates, Mag replied with a smile and looked at Shear with an alert gaze. Does Miss Shear have someone you like? It would be the best if she did. Otherwise, he had to be careful. Zhang Wuji's mother was right. Pretty women are all liars one. Shear blushed under Mag's gaze. However, why was he asking that? Everyone knew that she, Shear Buffett, was beautiful and smart. No man in Chaos City was good enough for her and she hadn't met anyone that she liked. Of course, that was in the past. Today, she suddenly felt that Mag was not bad. Although he was older than her, he only looked more mature and his figure was well kept. She could vaguely see his smart figure under his shirt. His slender fingers were also very good looking and he didn't look greasy even when he was working in the kitchen. Hence, was he testing if he had a chance? The line formed by the men who like me has most probably reached the outside of the city gate too, Sheer replied faintly. Mag raised his eyebrows slightly. He had met his match. His line reached the city gate, but hers had already reached the outside of the city gate. However, as the number one richest female tycoon in Chaos City, the rich and beautiful Sheer was definitely the dream lady for many men. Big sister, I don't want to work anymore. Mag felt that he could be a freeloader for the rest of his life as long as he said that. Of course, the greatest risk of choosing this path wasn't in the bed, but being hacked to death by Irina. Furthermore, Mag didn't think that this beautiful and smart business tycoon would fall for a chef like him. Such a story would only happen in the fairy tales that lied to the children. Hence, she just wanted to get the printer for free. I rejected them all, Mag said.